lobby. Let's all go to the lobby, lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to Now Slaying, an It Slays podcast production where we break down the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I'm your not-so-humble host, Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And today on the show, we are back with a very special episode, our second annual recap of what we missed, affectionately renamed Late to the Slaughter.
Dun,
As the blood has dried, we all survived, but we still have some work to do. So over the next couple of hours, Rowan and I are going to discuss 10 horror films released in 2025 that were in discussion for their own episode of Now Slaying, but were missed for one reason or another. All of the movies we'll be discussing are readily available on streaming services or video on demand, so we will be spoiling them in their entirety and discussing them with full spoilers. So if you're still catching up on what 2025 has to offer yourself, be sure to use the podcast chapters to jump around and listen to us discuss what you've seen, or keep listening if you simply don't care. And since this is a more laid-back, casual discussion of these films, we won't be giving them an official rating. This is just us sharing our thoughts and giving them a little lip service, for better or worse. But before we get into all of that, Rowan, on this episode, where we're feeling a little more reflective, I wanted to hit you with a more general question. What did you think of the past year in horror?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because, you're like, oh, I'm going to throw this question to you, but I've actually been thinking about this, especially as I was, watching stuff for this. And, I did watch a couple that didn't even make this list that were just kind of totally bypassing. Shout out to Al Pacino.
The Ritual.
The Ritual. Not good. There you go. Spoiler, not good. But
extra review.
I thought it was a pretty interesting year, especially for me, personally. I thought the highs were actually very, very high this year, more so than I think we get any other year. And I think the mediums kind of held their weight. There was a lot that I felt you and me, or sometimes me and Jill, or whoever, would talk about stuff, and even if it wasn't good, we were like, oh, we had a good time though, or something was fun. I found there was not a lot of low points this year, for me at least. Very few. I'm looking at you, Megan 2.0.
That one was tough.
Yeah, that one was tough. But Blumhouse be Blumhouse, and as we always say. Yeah, I was pretty pleased with it. I think it'll be very reflective in this list, but to me, I'm kind of dubbing this, I think the majority of people will dub this the year of weapons and sinners. Definitely as we're getting into award season, and I think you're probably going to hear at least one of those be coming up a lot. I'm kind of dubbing this, for me personally, the year of Shudder. I think not just stuff we'll talk about, but I think overall this is the most Shudder kind of original stuff I've watched this year, and it's all kind of been pretty good. There's nothing I regret watching, which I think we've always kind of complained that Shudder will usually have one or two that you're like, oh yeah, and then they just put out some that are so bad that it's just a total waste of time. And I hope this is a sign of good things to come. I feel like Shudder is also getting a little shine this year. This is very anecdotal, but I know a lot of people that aren't necessarily like us, just consuming horror weekly all the time, that literally are oh, hey, I signed up for Shudder. Do you know that service? Is it good? I've had at least 15 people this year tell me they've signed up for Shudder because they're interested in just binging on horror. And I think that's going to be good. More money.
Yeah, that's great.
More stuff. Like I said, I think overall the real answer is I've had a pretty fun year in my horror watching. I think it's been a pretty good year. What about you?
Yeah, this is a bit of a weird year for me in horror. The past couple of years, I feel there's always been 2 or 3 that would make my top 10 of the year. Where this year, it's a little bit more contentious. I would probably sum up this year as me being a contrarian, for the most part.
I like it.
Which, I'm known on the show anyways to be a little bit more guarded with my slays, or if you follow me on Letterboxd, if I give a 5-star to something, it's once a year, maybe. And if there's a 4.5, you might get 2 to 3 of those a year. So this is the sort of thing where there weren't a lot of movies that really excelled for me this year, or at least in the horror space. Obviously, you mentioned Weapons, but Sinners, which is obviously that's in like awards contention. Like it's being discussed as probably the second or third runner up to Best Picture. There's all these different various awards that it's, in contention for. I thought it was good. We had an episode about it. I didn't absolutely love it. There's a a movie that we're going to be discussing in a few minutes here on this show, or probably in an hour or so, it would be more accurate. That a lot of people feel very strongly about as being like this great harrowing movie, and I just thought it was pretty good. It was all right. So this is a bit of a strange year for me. Bring Her Back, for example, I was a huge fan of Talk to Me and what the Philippou brothers were doing there. I thought that was just good. So this is the this is the year where there was a bunch of horror releases that I was looking forward to, but they just didn't quite land as well as I would have hoped.
Would you say Bring Her Back is like one that you're just like saddened about? I've been thinking about Bring Her Back a lot as I did my top 10. And I was thinking about the impact of Talk to Me, like how much I love Talk to Me. And like I was thinking about Bring Her Back, and I was like, it's really sad that like I barely remember it as a movie.
So Bring Her Back was one that obviously I was disappointed when I saw it the first time. And I remember thinking that the pacing was so sluggish, and basically it was only that core brother-sister relationship that kind of kept me going. Now, I did rewatch it when I had some family in town there back in the summer.
As you do.
And yeah, exactly, right? That's a great one to throw on with the parents. And I thought it held up a lot better than I expected. Right. I definitely enjoyed it a little bit more on a second watch. I do think the gore effects are still nasty. Like, they're so gnarly in that movie that they make me squirm. But I still kind of feel the same way about that movie as I did in the beginning, where just some of the stuff in the end doesn't really coalesce. And I think it thinks that it makes more sense than it actually does. So I thought it was better, but yeah, of course I'm disappointed. Talk to Me, I think, was my favorite movie bar none of that entire year. I remember coming into the show basically being like reinvigorated about filmmaking, and basically being like, this is a directorial debut and look how fearless it is, like how in your face it is. And Bring Her Back was good. It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is kind of what this year was for me. Weapons was probably my Talk to Me this year, where I was incredibly impressed by it. I've seen it now, I think 3 or 4 times. I very much enjoy that movie. I think it's like endlessly rewatchable. But with that said, to kind of tease what we're going to be discussing here within the next couple of hours, there is one movie on this list that just cracked my top 10 of the year. Not just top 10 horror, top 10 of the entire year. And it bumped out Hamnet. So Chloe Zhao, Paul Mescal, Jessie Buckley. You'll get your flowers in a couple months at the Oscars. I got something else to include on my list. And with that, I think it's time to get this slaughter started with our first film of the evening, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was directed by Emma Tammy and written by Scott Cawthon, and the story is as follows. 1 year after the supernatural nightmare at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, Abby runs away to reconnect with her animatronic friends, uncovering dark secrets about the true origins of Freddy's and unleashing a horror hidden for decades. Rowan, remind me, what this was on our actual radar to do on the show, right? Like, I believe you and Jill were supposed to cover it?
Yeah, this was one that I went and saw, and I think I saw this like opening weekend. So
you saw this basically a month ago.
Yeah, no. I saw this a long time ago, and it was just, as the holiday season approached us, everyone was getting busy and we couldn't really fit it in, and I feel like I can't even remember. You know what it was? We ended up doing an episode on Silent Night, Deadly Night, and that kind of, it was like we can do one or the other, and because of the, 'tis the season, we were like, let's knock this one out, and we'll
makes sense.
We'll save the Five Nights for Freddy's for this.
And Five Nights at Freddy's, was this one that you were looking forward to? Where I can't remember. We covered the original on the show a couple years ago.
We did.
But I'm one of those, what I would kind of call a closeted FNAF fan. I was deep into the lore of the video games. I remember watching all my game theory videos. They probably have 100 of those now. When I was watching them 5 or 6 years ago, they had probably 30. It's the sort of videos where every single video that comes out afterwards, you need to rewatch the ones before it. And it's so complicated and so nitty gritty and so full of just theories and things that are never made good on, that it's basically impossible to just getting to these videos and really understand them if you don't watch them all. So this was the sort of thing where I was deep into the Freddy Fazbear lore for a certain point. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't looking forward to it purely based on the reviews that kind of, encircled this. This is widely known to be one of the worst horror movies of the year. So I figured we'd start it off with a bang, and kind of get this one out of the way. But I'm not going to lie, I didn't absolutely hate this.
Let's fucking go, Colton. Let's fucking go. Because I also didn't absolutely hate this. I really felt, I don't know if maybe I've had was it a year ago, the last Five Nights at Freddy's? I feel like this turned out pretty quickly, right?
Was it only a year ago? No, it had to be. It
must have been 2 years. It was
there's a lot of visual effects in this movie.
2 at max. But, I said when we did that one, right? Like I didn't play the games. I wasn't familiar with any of the lore. I was in a packed theater with a bunch of kids screaming stuff that I have no idea what's going on.
You weren't upset by them renaming the puppet the marionette?
No. In fact, I just assumed I'm like, oh yeah, this must just be a character of that.
Were you confused by the 2 Michaels in this movie now? Now there's a Mike and a Michael.
100%.
Okay.
I'm proud to announce, I'm still approaching my late 30s, not knowing any Five Nights at Freddy's lore.
Great. Love to hear it.
Yeah, but this is one of those things that, and I said this when we did the first one, I never did the work. I like it as an idea. Like, I like the concept of the lore. Yeah. I think it's cool. I've seen some gameplay of the game. I think the game actually looks pretty boring. Like, I wouldn't be into it. But I can imagine.
What's funny is there's a part in this movie that is basically the game, beat for beat.
Yeah, and like when the games originally came out, like it was kind of for this like indie groundbreaking thing. It was scary and all that stuff. To me, I'm like, I'd be pretty bored. Looking
made
at
by
these
one
cameras.
guy and essentially blew up from YouTubers just reacting to it and screaming at all the jump scares.
But like I said, I think it's kind of cool. I kind of like the lore. I'm not going to lie, the marionette stuff in this, I kind of liked it just because.
Oh, okay.
With the first one, we've got Freddy and what the rest of their names? I don't know, Chunky,
Chica,
Spunky.
Bonnie.
Yeah.
Chunky and Spunky.
And Spunky, Foxy. I know Foxy. At least they named someone, yeah. But like to me, I know that was just the introductory movie, but like all these things kind of look the same. They're just these big animatronics, like Chuck E. Cheese looking thing. I thought it was cool to bring like something else into this world, just adding, I guess, to this lore that I have no idea about. But I just thought it was an interesting concept, and it was just one that like. This is a movie that I didn't hate that I saw in the theater. It was also packed when I saw it. And
nice.
Kids were yelling and screaming. It was actually pretty funny because this time around, and I'm curious that, there's no way this hasn't, made its rounds on the like Netflix top 10 during Halloween and stuff. But I noticed a lot of younger kids at this screening that I went to. So obviously, the younger kids getting into the horror warms my heart a little bit. And like I was sitting
this is very much gateway horror.
Yeah. I was sitting in an aisle with like these 2 kids that were no older than like 7. And they had the same type of fears if I had like a gun to their mother's head. They were just like petrified. Jeez. And I mean, that's always a good time. But yeah, no, you know what? I thought for what this was, it was pretty fun. I like to see Freddy walking around the fair and doing all that stuff. Like,
oh no.
I mean, I thought this is like one of those like inoffensively bad movies, right? Like, it's not for me, but we're going to go see the third one. Maybe I'll like the third one. The track record it's on right now, it's only going up. So,
okay, all right.
Like, did you have the same kind of enjoyment? Yeah?
Listen, I enjoyed it. I think I probably felt very similar about this as I did to the first one, where I was like, why is the main focus of this movie about how a kid is just friends with the animatronics? And it's the same kid again, but now she's friends with different versions. I think they're called the toy animatronics from the original Freddy Fazbear place, because of course we got to introduce all these variations of the animatronics, because that's what the games are known for. You go and look at the latest games, there's like 60 different versions of these things, with all the different sister locations and franchises and whatever else. So When I was watching this, I was confused a little bit, largely because of some of the lore about, the puppet being more of an entity from what I remember, not like the focal piece of, the original Freddy Fazbear location, some things like that, or they were introducing later animatronics and kind of flashbacks at some points in the movie. There's a lot of weird, like, little animatronics that pop up in this movie that I'm like, it's just baseless, fan service for a lot of the movie. They just pop up for no real reason and then they just vanish. But did I enjoy it? Yeah, I did. I'm not gonna lie. This was the very first thing I watched for our recap episode, and I threw it on just because I was kind of on the fence at one point about seeing this in theaters and kind of coming in and recording an episode with you instead of Jill, but I was always feeling that it was also going to release on streaming at any minute. So of course, over the holidays, it did, and I checked it out on the comfort of my own couch. I thought this had some terrible children acting. Oh my God.
Yeah,
beginning of the movie. Oh, with that like birthday party scene, it was so offensively bad that I was cackling at the beginning of it already. There's parts in it where they just introduce, what is it, a Faz talker? So the animatronics can talk to the main girl when they're not there. And I thought that was so goofy, and I hated that as well. Vanessa from the first movie is no longer a cop, or a cop that's, on whatever leave to recover from her wounds from the first movie, but also just an excuse to have her not being a cop in this movie. There was so much shit that I was just cracking up laughing at, but I can't lie. I'm similar to yourself where I just inherently like the ideas of possessed Chuck E. Cheese's, animatronics kind of going around. Like this idea that like there might be a child trapped inside of it still, I think is a pretty good horror concept, especially for gateway horror. And there was actually some sound work at points in this movie when they were moving around that it almost sounded like gushing or sloshing a little bit inside of some of the machines that I thought was pretty intentional. And I don't know if in the movies it'll come to impact anything, but in the games, there are very subtle hints like that wind up paying off games later, if you really delve into the lore. So I definitely liked some of that. The Faz Fest stuff, God, I hated that. It was so bad seeing like Freddy just walk around at the fair and just lumber around with a bunch of fans just all gawking at him and, going to the costume contest and all this shit. I didn't enjoy that very much, but once again, I was just kind of laughing at it for the most part. The ending, oh my God, we got to discuss the ending.
Yes.
Where were you confused when there was 3 different variations of animatronics rolling up at the ending?
I was so lost.
There's the ones from the first movie. There's the ones from this movie. And then there's also the prototype ones being controlled by Michael Afton, who just rolls in and he's like Chris Pratt in the Jurassic World movies, where he's just like, almost like controlling these, oh my God, animatronics, and they're doing rock'em sock'em robots on the front lawn. Oh, it was so awful. It was such a bad ending. I was cracking up. It was like not at all a horror movie anymore, but I didn't hate it. It was enjoyable.
I mean, that's kind of the theme, right, of this, is it's like you're watching it and you're like, oh, I can't believe they're doing this. But like, it's just like fun. To me, it was just like stupid fun. I will say, like you said, like we definitely get a scene with Mike, like with the security cameras doing what I've seen clips of the actual game doing. Yeah. Do I care about that? Not really, but if I felt good.
Sitting in the desk. Yeah, essentially he was placed in a desk where, for whatever reason, it looked like an office for ants. Yeah. Because everything was, like, he looked so small in comparison to everything else. Like, the buttons were absolutely massive. He was, like, the size of the vents. The scale was all fucking thrown off in this office, but he was, he was doing a good job. And then they have him put on a mask at one point, which I believe is the way to get rid of the golden Freddy or something silly in the games. I can't remember.
Because of the facial recognition, of course.
Absolutely. But it was so goofy in the movie. I couldn't believe.
Yeah, it's super goofy.
There.
And that's what I mean. It was stuff like that where I was like, but you know what? Like I said, I felt good because I'm like, hey, if you're some kid or, some guy our age that's like a fan of those games, I'm like, there's nothing I love more than when you're like, fuck yeah, that was in the game. Just living off that. I was going to say, I think another thing I kind of liked about it too, especially with that addition of the marionette, and I feel like this has been a theme just overall on the podcast for 2025. The marionette just giving me big 2000s horror energy. Like everything about it was, I was like, this is like The Grudge and The Rain, and like it was just that kind of vibe. Maybe also that kind of effects from 2002.
I was going to say.
And it was just like, but that's the thing. It's like, these aren't things that were intentional, but just because they either looked bad or it made me chuckle, it was like also endearing to me.
Yeah, there were so many just logic issues in this movie that it would take us another 20 minutes to go over all of them. But to name some quick things that I enjoyed, when Michael Afton meets up with the people, I forget the name of the woman who winds up being possessed by the puppet and all this stuff, but basically he meets up with discount ghost hunters at the original Freddy Fazbear location, and they go inside and they kind of all get murdered in different ways. Like I think Ennard grabs one of them, and you know the puppet possesses one of them, and one of them is going in like this log flume ride that has a bunch of weird little marionettes for some reason, and they eat them like piranhas. I was baffled at what I was seeing on screen. It was just so strange. Or how Abby becomes a robotics master with Chica teaming up with, you know, the duck animatronic to build like a 3D printed version of herself, and then swaps it out with a full life version. Just goofy shit like that just had me shaking my head that it was so stupid, but I can't lie that I did enjoy it. Or there was, what was it? The music box setup. The music box setup as being the way into kind of taming this puppet. And he goes, weird, he just gave me a music box. When hearing the puppet's backstory, like shit like that, it was so enjoyable to laugh at on the TV screen.
And I mean, you know, my main highlight also, my guy, Skeet Ulrich showing up, giving everybody, you know, what everybody really wants. Matthew Lillard and Skeet in a movie together, you know.
Of course.
First time since Scream. And, you know, he did what he did. Obviously, he plays a big part in the kind of the credits of the spoiler of the third film, but what does that mean? I still don't really know, but I'm sure it's lore.
If they're going off the video games, they wind up kind of mining the original location and taking a bunch of things from it. And there's a time jump in the games that I don't think there will be in the movie because it makes no sense. But basically, they open up a Freddy Fazbear's haunted house that's like stolen from a bunch of things from the restaurant. And yeah, of course, it's all possessed and whatnot. And, you know, opens up the door to a bunch of different variations of the different nightmare animatronics.
I'd also like to let everyone know, as you're listening to this, to pick up your phone. And if you Google Five Nights at Freddy's 2, for some reason, just eyes from Freddy stare at you on Google. I don't know why it just did that, but
always watching.
I just had to take a look, and Jesus Christ, guys, we're getting like 8 of these movies. I was like, how much money did this movie make? And you know what?
Are the numbers good?
Let's just say if the Academy Award went to your box office numbers, Five Nights at Freddy's in that top 10 best picture, baby.
Nice. Love to hear it.
$236 million for a movie that was $30 million.
Yeah, we're getting some more. Absolutely.
Love it. Love it for us.
I guess just as a last note to end on, obviously the old animatronics destroying like the yassified versions of themselves were hilarious. But the ending with Vanessa being haunted, where Mike is just essentially like, wait, you're related to him and you lied to me about some of the details of your family? I'm leaving. We're no longer together. And then she becomes haunted by the puppet and starts crying.
Yeah.
Oof. Oof. What a bad ending. that was so bad. Yeah, I literally had to rewind it and just be like, did that just happen? Just the effects, the emotional payoff, everything about it didn't work. And then, of course, we cut the credits with a dubstep song playing about becoming a puppet. Wow.
Cinema's back. We're back.
And I guess with that, let's just get into our next movie of the evening, Good Boy. Good Boy was directed by Ben Leonberg and written by Ben Leonberg and Alex Cannon, and the story is as follows. A loyal dog moves to a rural family home with his owner, only to discover supernatural forces lurking in the shadows. As dark entities threaten his human companion, the brave pup must fight to protect the ones he loves most. Good Boy, released, this was one of those movies that originally it was only supposed to get a straight to streaming release.
Yeah.
The trailer did so well online that it went to limited theatrical, and then they actually pushed it out to a wide distribution. So I remember this one on the show. We originally were going to cover it, I believe, back in October at some point.
Yeah, I think pretty much all year we were like, oh yeah, like we're going to end up talking about this movie, and you know, it's such an original concept for a film that we were like, there's no way we can let this pass. And then I really think it was just, I know like it played weirdly here, like it only played in like one theater in Nova Scotia, and
yeah, I don't think we got it all here in Newfoundland.
Yeah, so our first Shudder movie.
Yeah. This one's, you know, as we said at the top, everything's available on VOD, but this is one of the ones that it's also available streaming on Shudder. And this one for me, I wasn't really looking forward to. I was expecting it to be a little boring. I think it's only 70 to 80 minutes long, so it's not a huge investment, but I had to watch a lot of these movies within the run of a week or so. So I started this one late. It was literally after 1 a.m. My idea going into it was I'll watch until I'm bored or until I start falling asleep, and I'll come back to it tomorrow. So I'm not going to lie. I came in, I was being a little bit of a movie snob. I was like, oh, that blood looks a little bit too orange. Oh, it doesn't even line up with the cell phone positioning on the screen. All this dialogue is delivered unconvincingly. I was literally like, had it out for this movie. Then we get a little montage of Indy as a pup, and then we see Indy when he's full grown and acting, and I was like, damn, this dog is great at acting. And then I was like, wow, this is some pretty impressive camera work. You know, there's great framing. The shot composition is impressive. There's unique movements. And then I started noticing the sound design, and, you know, and pretty quickly in the course of probably 15 to 20 minutes, all of my cynicism around this movie vanished. And I found myself just heavily invested in this movie. You're not a dog person, Rowan.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about this one?
So you're getting like real-time thoughts here. I'd like to read my first note I wrote while watching, I was watching this, that just says, I have had a very long record of hating dogs. This is a really good boy. And I just said adorable.
Yeah.
Doing a little research, also found out it's a Nova Scotia duck toiling retriever is the kind of dog it is. So obviously, you know, then you're playing with my patriotic heartstrings going on here.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like you. I didn't really know what to expect. And this was one of those ones that this is a film that I think, especially for Shudder, kind of crossed over where people I know that don't pay attention to horror were like, hey, I saw a trailer for this like dog horror movie. Because obviously, you know, cats, dogs on the internet, it's going to spread like wildfire. And then the worst thing happens. We don't cover it on the show. I'm watching other Now Slains. Then people start watching it before I see it. And then I start to hear people like, it was kind of whatever. Like, then there was people in my life that were like, it wasn't really that good. And so then I got really worried because as you said, I'm going into it like, well, it's this like kind of, there's a gimmick to it. It's supposed to be like from a dog's perspective. And I had kind of thought right off the bat, I'm like, there's no, this would be good for a short. There's no way they're going to be able to like expand this out to a full thing. And I'm letting you know, I jumped multiple times in this movie.
Me too.
I thought the scares were really good. I also thought, even though it's kind of this, quote unquote gimmick of having it from the dog's perspective or whatever, it's not as gimmicky as it sounds. I thought the storytelling was really good. Like you said, the sound design, the atmosphere was really good. I mean, this is like a very indie movie.
Usually, I think on set, they said only 4 to 5 people. Tops.
Yeah. I was just like really impressed, especially for like a feature film debut. It kind of makes me sad, as we talked to, earlier we talked about like the great films of Talk to Me and like these guys that get these huge platforms. And I'm just like, this deserves all that praise to me. Like, this is such an amazing debut film. And, like, it has, like, some heart to it. Like, I definitely, like, choked up a couple times in it. It's dealing with, like, some heavier topics. And then, of course, just icon Larry Fessenden in it. So I was even more impressed that They had him.
Oh, is he the hunter or the trapper in the woods?
Yeah, he was the hunter guy, I believe.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Or no, he was Grandpa. Sorry, no, he wasn't the hunter.
Oh, okay. He was just in like a flashback or something then.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, I was like, oh, it's got the Larry Fessenden stamp of approval, like the king of independent horror movies for 30 years, and yeah, the dog was so good. Like you said, like I was so impressed. Because the dog's going to show some crazy, like, different emotions in this. And, I'm not going to lie, there's, like, a little part of my brain that's kind of sad. Because I'm like, oh, how did they get the dog to, like, do this?
Well, and it's even a little bit more sad when you look into it. And it's the director's dog. Yeah. And they shot this over the course of, like, 4 years. Yeah. And, the dog obviously isn't classically trained in any, shape or form. So a lot of the time, it's probably just calling to the dog off camera or making a loud noise or something like that. But I mean, that I don't want to underplay it too much because the dog actually has to do a lot of action in this movie too. And, the dog is whipping through the house as obviously a cameraman follows them behind. A lot of the framing of a lot of the shots are very much close on the dog in terms of having it in the foreground as it's seeing things. This is a very well-behaved, well-trained dog. And also, once again, its performance on screen, which is sounds so funny to be talking about the dog's performance, but it is very effective. It is genuinely novel when you're watching the movie. It's something I haven't seen before. I was very impressed by it. It was an aspect of the movie that if you pitch this to anybody to try and get funding, they would be like, absolutely not. There's no way in hell we're funding this movie. What do you mean? Like, basically, if you work in film, the two things you don't want to work with on set are dogs and children, or animals and children. Because basically they are so hard to wrangle and so hard to get the performances that you desire out of them. Yeah. Right? They kind of have a life of their own. So it's the sort of thing when I was watching how well Indy did in this movie and how well Ben, the director, directed these scenes. I was genuinely impressed. And then also, something that we haven't discussed yet is the entities.
Yes.
This is a movie that I'm sure has basically no budget, right? Passion project made over the course of 4 years. They use the entities so sparingly and so selectively that it is genuinely impressive throughout this movie. They do the sort of things where they're obscured in the shadows. It's a lot of work with light. There are parts where they're more front and center, but it's obviously like a person kind of caked in mud or, black paint or something like that. And it was always so effective. There are a couple of shots that definitely it's like visual effects, but they merge it and mix it so well throughout the movie that it never really pulled me out of it. And there's this one jump scare where I think it's the entity quickly lunging at the dog, and it's like a extreme close up on the dog's eye, and you see the reflection of it reaching out for Indy. And I thought it was so impressive. There's also a scene where I think it's the owner kind of like scrambles up the stairs from the basement after there's like some funky lighting and electricity kind of in the basement, and he scrambles up the stairs really quickly. That I was like, damn, this movie not only managed to wrangle a dog and get a great performance out of it over the course of 4 years, but also it was so deliberate in its use of special effects and visual effects to make these entities genuinely scary and genuinely like interestingly done. We've seen this done in numerous other horror movies where it is poor. Good Boy. It's great. They do a good job with it.
Yeah, no, the effects were very impressive. And I thought it was interesting because not only has that been done, but obviously, a very beaten path to the, are they possessed? Are they not possessed? What's going on here? Like possession in the place of sickness. It's been done, but I thought this was like such a personal and like unique spin on it. Like I said, I was like pretty emotional for this. Like, and I was like, that's pretty impressive. Just to let you know, also, budget, $70,000.
Yeah, it's genuinely impressive. As someone who, for the past 6 weeks of 2025 worked on what was a lower budget film, but still like $7 million, we're talking about thousands of times more money. What they achieved here is shocking. Like, once you've kind of seen behind the curtain and you've seen the books of how much everything costs, it is very easy to see how all these costs rise up and rack up to make just millions of dollars for the budget. To do this with $70,000 over the course of 4 years, like, once again, this is a passion project where you were relying on a couple of friends, some networking, maybe compensating some people appropriately. Obviously, if you need to bring in like a special effects or a stunt supervisor for a day or something like that. But genuinely impressive work.
And I'm very curious. So were you very happy? Were you relieved at the end that they didn't, Indy didn't come to his demise?
That's something that I'm a little bit let down with in the marketing. So going into this movie, it was widely known that Indy survives the movie. Yeah. And he was basically everyone was worried about, you're going to watch this dog and he's going to die at the end. This is a horror movie. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Oftentimes our protagonists die at the end. Look at this movie, other than Indy. Yeah. So going into it, I was like, oh, I know the dog is fine. There's loads of reviews talking about, thankfully, the dog survives. So I will say that I like the ending, but the fox snare part would have hit a lot harder for me if I didn't know if the dog was going to survive or not. Because I thought that was a really well set up, it was like Chekhov's fox snare that we all knew that this was coming at some point in the movie. The trapper mentions the snares multiple times. And it was a harrowing little piece of filmmaking for probably 15, 20 seconds as Indy was, rolling around and trying to escape the snare, that I am happy he survived, but I wish it wasn't so everywhere present in the marketing and kind of the discussion around this movie. But yeah, to get back to your original question, the ending. I thought the ending was great.
Yeah.
The kind of this idea of essentially basically being like, is he going to take his dog with him? There's this idea of dogs lingering at the place of where they last saw their owner. I like the idea that basically Indy doesn't succumb to whatever was in the house, whatever was affecting them in their lives. He doesn't go with his owner. And, he kind of turns and goes the other way. There's obviously the setup of Bandit, the other dog, and all this sort of thing that adds some extra emotional layers to the film. But I really liked it. The last shot where we're holding for such a long time with the door open and you hear his owner calling to him from the darkness and you don't know if Indy's going to follow it. And I thought it was a great last shot, and where he turns and runs the other way to go to the owner's sister. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I'm excited for Good Boy 2, but it's gonna be a boy cat. The owner's gonna die, and the cat just sits on the owner's face. Yeah, it just eats him. It doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. So yeah, this one I thought I was genuinely impressed by it. It's technically sound, has a short runtime that makes the most of its conceit, and it has some great scares and a great dog performance. So no reason for you not to check this one out. It's on Shudder.
This is amazing.
Now to move on to something that I would classify as not so amazing. Next up is Dead Male. Dead Male was written and directed by Joe DeBear and Kyle McConney, and the story is as follows. An ominous help note finds its way to a 1980s post office, connecting a dead letter investigator to a kidnapped keyboard technician. I'm not gonna lie, Rowan, this is one you're gonna have to do a little bit of the heavy lifting on. For whatever reason, this was one of the movies on this list, one of the few movies on this list that just did not vibe for me whatsoever.
Yeah, so I'll let me hold you like you're a good boy, Indy, and I'll hold you up for this one. Yeah, no, it's which is funny because we, as we said at the beginning, we're like, we're not giving these ratings or anything. Mm-hmm. This was the first movie when I had to watch all these movies. Like I had wrote Slay, capital letters.
No way.
I love this movie so much.
Wow.
I went in blind. I didn't see a trailer. I had no idea what this was about. Mm-hmm. In fact, I didn't even remember hearing about this coming out other than you. I think you telling me, because this came out around another one we're going to talk about later. And I think I remember you being like, oh, hey, I heard these two movies are like pretty good. They're getting some good reviews. Like maybe we should look at them for doing an episode, and we just never got around to it. So I went into this totally blind. And this is the Lynchian love I have, where I was just, this movie's so weird. Like if you're not ready for like just some, I'm trying to think how to describe it. This is like when I complain when we review movies and I'm like, oh, this is just like an art house piece of shit trash.
Yeah.
This 100% is, okay? I get it. This is what I usually rail against, and I'm like, oh, this is just like pretentious and weird and all these things, but I loved it. It was so weird. Like the first thing I had, like my first note as I was watching it, I said it reminds me of a David Lynch mixed with Scooter McRae mixed with Peter Strickland. And I just thought the very like surrealism of Lynch with this like very odd topic and very indie style of like Scooter McRae, and then just like the music and sounds of it of like a Peter Strickland.
Wow.
Yeah, just real film analysis there. But I was like, this is like just all these weird creators that I actually enjoy kind of mixed into one. Obviously, the aesthetic, I really like the aesthetic of it. I like the look of it. It's got, it's like grainy. It definitely looks like it's like a little step above like a made on video, like indie film. It's made to look old in 80s.
Yeah, it's meant to look like it's shot on film, but it's crunched even more so that the grain is so pronounced that it's almost distracting. There'll be portions of the movie where you'll be watching it, obviously, and there'll be large swaths that are kind of isolated and really, really heavy grain, and then other parts will be less so. And it does direct your eye to a certain degree, and I don't know if that was all captured in camera or not, but it is definitely a stylistic choice. It reminded me of kind of like a lesser The Love Witch, which will also come up later on this list in comparison to another movie. But yeah, for me, for whatever reason, this style and kind of this vibe just didn't work at all for me. My first note is, right away, this opening scene of a man crawling out of the house, something is off about it. It looks very cheap and very fake. And this artifice, this idea of always being knowledgeable that like you're watching a movie, I just felt it the entire time. There's so many like strange little choices, like, male sortation, as a big sign in the background. Everything exists in kind of a heightened reality, exaggerated. Everyone's fixated on weird things. Everyone's dressed weird. Lynchian is a good term for it, but Lynch was always so assured. And it felt like it had so much purpose. And even if I didn't understand it, I'd kind of give myself over to Lynch and say, listen, I'm going to have to go watch a YouTube video afterwards on how this was explained and how it makes sense. But he knew what he was doing. This, to me, seemed like emulating a lot of the time. And for whatever reason, it just didn't vibe with me. And I found myself dozing off within about 15-20 minutes of the movie. I never dozed off for long, but when I did, I didn't care to rewind too much to see what I missed, because I felt like I was always just missing vibes, basically.
I mean, it's definitely a vibe movie. I really, really enjoyed the music. I thought it was it's a really bizarre score, because it's like trying to do this kind of, 80s synth type thing, but it's mixed with this organ synth music, because obviously the story, like, our main characters are like obsessed with creating like one specific organ sound on your keyboard. It's just like such a specific thing. Now, and it's funny because now that I'm like thinking about it some more and I'm coming down, I may have put it down to a yay if I really thought about it.
Already? We haven't even fought over it.
Well, because I will say this. I thought the highlight of this was Tomas Boykin is so good in this, and I'm so captivated for him. It's weird, he's got like the kind of that like noir hard-boiled like detective thing going on, but he's just like this mail sorter that it seems like a dead mail sorter that I'm pretty sure like doesn't even really get paid, because he like lives in like a YMCA, like a home for...
He's just in it for the love of the game.
Just the love of the game. And, I loved, like, as it's doing this, I love just this kind of like, I'm like, oh, there's going to be this cool, like, detective thing where, he's got his buddy calls on the phone that's, like, in another country across the world, and they're solving this mystery. And, I mean, I did get in, obviously, he meets his maker pretty, quickly in this film, and then it transitions.
Yeah, like literally 15-20 minutes or so.
So I did appreciate the shock of it, where I was like, oh, okay. Like, so I was, falling in love with this guy, and now it's just like, where's it going to go from here? And I think the only real issue I had with it is like the two women that kind of take over the search. I just didn't find them as intriguing as Jasper. Like, I thought Jasper was just way more interesting. And my other issue was, like, I felt like they should almost have been centered a little more. Because once Jasper dies and is killed, we focus on Josh and Trent. And then the detective part of it is kind of very secondary to the film.
Exactly. The movie sidelines these women that take over. I think it's like Anne and Bess.
Yeah, Bess and Anne.
Yeah, so it sidelines them as soon as Jasper dies. And obviously Jasper was basically the only piece of the movie that was keeping me lucid in the beginning. Like, I was like, okay, this is interesting. He's a character. He's really deep in this. He's going to solve it. He dies. I'm not checked out of the movie purely because we surprisingly kill a protagonist. There's loads of movies that we do that, and I still very much enjoy it. I am checked out of the movie because it pivots so much to be about Trent and Josh, and it's basically them just kind of will they, won't they, little bit of like homoerotic tension, weird techno babble, very sterile and slow and like locked off camera movement and direction. And it's just all so awkward and so hard to sit through. But for me, like, I didn't vibe with it. Like, usually there's movies that are like awkward in this way that I really enjoy it. Like, for example, Dream Scenario. Yeah. A year or two ago with Nicolas Cage. It has this like awkward energy to it that I just thoroughly vibe with. This, I was more so involved in the mystery and wanting these dead male workers to kind of sort it out. Not to watch just the guy trying to figure out how to make a sound on a keyboard. And a lot of this movie is him trying to figure out how to make the sound and getting like the right epoxies and the right, like, you know, motherboard installed, and then talking about moving to Japan to further pursue this shit, that I was just so checked out, dude.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. I think you should be commended because you've impressively, like I said, you talked me down from the sleigh to the yay already.
I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just saying I was like allergic to this movie.
And I think the thing was, like, I did watch this late at night, so it kind of hit me. You know what it kind of reminded me of? Not that they have anything really alike, but it kind of hit me like when I watched Skinamarink. Like, it was on late and I was just in the vibe. I was like almost just like hypnotized by the vibe. The vibe worked for me. And I was just like, oh, this is so weird. And, you know, I didn't mind the VHS aesthetic as much as you did. Like, it didn't bug me as much. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. And I was really a fan of the score and the music. But I could totally see, like, this probably isn't, unless I'm talking to someone that likes like weird, a little avant-garde out there things, I probably wouldn't. I'm probably not hitting my mom up like, hey, you should check out Dead Male.
This isn't a normie horror pick, that's for sure.
But I will say it gave me enough kernels of stuff. I would be interested to see like something else this guy does. Just, I'm curious if there's actually something there, if this is just like a weird thing he made and then that's kind of it. You can be Lynchian, but it's, not everybody's Lynch. Not everybody's just weird all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to say too is what I did also like about this is I did like the ending credits. I had a note about that. So I thought it was interesting because the ending credits, they actually end it like it's a movie about a real crime. So it like tells you.
I agree. That was good.
I
liked
that
them cutting from the characters to the real people, quote unquote real people.
Yeah.
And giving you all the blurbs on what happened to them. I will agree. That was cute. I did enjoy that. And with that, let's move on to something very exciting, very titillating, erotic, some might say. We're talking about Bone Lake. Bone Lake was directed by Mercedes Bryce Morgan and written by Joshua Friedlander, and the story is as follows. A couple's vacation at a secluded estate is upended when they're forced to share the mansion with a mysterious couple. A dream getaway spirals into a nightmarish maze of sex, lies, and manipulation, triggering a battle for survival. Now, Rowan, I kind of leaned into it a little bit. This movie was pitched as kind of this sexy, scandalous horror movie. There's all these innuendos on the different posters. There's one that says Boner Lake, where they're using the R, the restricted rating to factor into the marketing. I think this was one that originally you and Jill were going to cover, because obviously just through the marketing and,
we thought this was a Jill movie.
Exactly, right? We thought you guys were going to cover it. But for whatever reason, you didn't get around to it. So now I'm here in the year 2026 watching this one evening on my couch, like some creep. And it starts off with just this butt-naked couple running through the woods and a crossbow shot through the testicles. And first of all, very painful. Very. Second of all, I was like, what am I watching? Is this going to be some weird exploitation movie? And I was kind of on board just if it was going to be this weird slasher. Yeah. And then it's just not at all for like the next hour and 15 minutes probably. That I was very surprised that this got so much marketing and so much hype behind it.
I'll say this right now. So this was, out of everything we're going to talk about, this was what I thought the biggest disappointment in the entire list of movies we decided to do. Yeah. I think because of the hype up, like you said, there was the marketing. You kept seeing like kind of the blurbs, like I think Bloody Disgusting posted a lot about it. And like you said, it was kind of marketed as, I had read that it was going to be like, oh, there's going to be like some weird, like it's going to be like almost body horror, erotic type, like it's definitely going to be like real sexually charged and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, I can get on with that. So to my surprise, when I turned this on and I'm like, oh, wait a second, this isn't, for some reason I thought this was a body horror movie. It's not whatsoever. It's just like, this is basically like a twist on like, people stuck on an island and people hunting them, except it's just an Airbnb.
Were you a little bit upset that they just stole the Barbarian setup for this movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I watched it, I mean, it's not my first note because I do have like half a dozen things. I mean, you can't get past a crossbow bolt to the nutsack and not have me kind of write it down. But I was just so perturbed. I was so upset by the fact that they just did the Barbarian setup of like somebody showing up to an Airbnb and it being double booked and then basically being forced to cohabitate and kind of like feel each other out. Like, what are their true intentions? Barbarian did it so successfully. And at the time, this idea was so unique and something I've never seen before. And also something I haven't even really thought about, that I thought it was so engaging to see it now just like cheaply ripped off and tweaked into what they were trying to market as like this erotic horror movie, when it's really just like a relationship drama / thriller a little bit. It was very disappointing.
Like I said, it was just, as the movie continued to go on, it was just like, I kept realizing more and more that this was a totally different movie than I was going in expecting. Mm-hmm. So then I kind of had to readjust, and I'm like, okay, so this is kind of be like a cat and mouse, kind of game where I didn't think it was like very well hidden of what was going on. Like I kind of knew straight before they just come out and explain it to you, which is like one of my biggest pet peeves ever in movies, like where they literally just re-show me the scenes from a different perspective. And the problem is you can do that if it's like clever, but I'm like, okay, like this wasn't that clever.
They basically do the thing where they can just crop out a little bit and be like, oh, they were hid in the bushes just off frame. Oh, they were in this window actually looking out. Yeah, it's so funny that the movie explains that, and then they're not confident in the fact that they explained it well enough that they still spend like a solid 5 to 10 minutes of having the actors give their villain monologue of what they were doing. And it's like, okay, I understand the characters in the movie need to understand the villain's motives, but as an audience, we know what they are now, and we don't have to watch this for 10 minutes, just this big monologue.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, as I continue my trend of comparisons, obviously my second note on this movie was Big 8 Florence Pugh.
Absolutely. I'm so happy that you had that. Third note for me, the girlfriend is just a discount Florence Pugh. Yeah. So I nailed it. Yeah. She's styled in such a way. The actress, if you look at her IMDb page, she actually doesn't look like Florence Pugh, but it's just the makeuping, the hairstyling, kind of the way she holds herself. Everything about her screams Florence Pugh in Midsommar. specifically, because you also have to buy into the fact that this relationship is on the rocks and her boyfriend's an asshole. So that's kind of right away when you're going into this, it's like, okay, don't get me wrong, casting someone who's a discount Florence Pugh isn't immediately a turn off for a movie, because Florence Pugh is a great actress, and maybe you were writing this movie with her in mind, which is a very good person to base a character off of, based off, you know, her body of work. But it was just so lazy that I couldn't get down with it. I thought she did fine in the movie, but her boyfriend, he was terrible.
He was so bad.
This like writer character that I couldn't figure out his accent for most of the movie, and it was apparently he was Spanish, but there's parts in this movie where he sounds like he's like German from like Eastern Europe. I mean, his name is Diego, I'm pretty sure, so he's definitely Spanish. But I was just so confused by this guy. He's awful. He's so bad in the movie. I don't know how he landed the gig.
Yeah, he was just wretched in this. I had written down, I thought Alex Rowe was pretty good, who played Will.
He's fine.
I thought for this kind of film, I was like, you know, he's bratty. He's like, you know, spoiled, rotten. He was the only one in this movie that he kind of had chemistry with everybody, but nobody else had chemistry with anyone else.
Yeah. Oh, man, the scenes where his girlfriend is trying to seduce. Oh, yeah, where Sin is trying to seduce Diego, and there's multiple attempts at it where it's like, oh, come sort through my underwear in my, you know, suitcase and find my dildo, and like all this shit is so bad. I did not like those scenes. They were just so awkward, and not like sexy awkward in terms of like her like kind of luring this nerd to be into her. Just like no chemistry, very forced, and also just like, who would get themselves into this situation? Yeah, like I don't know. It was just so bizarre.
Yeah, well, and I think the real downfall with this is I think the vibe they kind of wanted or marketed it as or felt it maybe had is, there isn't any sex in this movie. Like it's literally marketed as like this R-rated, it's like violence and sex, and they even
the music in the movie is saying violence and sex, whatever.
And like they're in the movies like trying to say like, oh yeah, like, you know, we're seducing and breaking up this couple, but like the one thing I had noted, I was like, this movie, for this like plot of separate this couple, seduce them, have sex with them, whatever, like ruin this relationship, I was like, this movie really lacks any sex. Like there's nothing on screen. Like it's always like the people turn them down or whatever. Like nothing actually happens. And I was just like,
there's quick cuts to like Florence Pugh and Diego having sex, and my note is that this is the least sexy sex scene I've ever seen in my life. It's like, obviously they're both still like partially clothed and just basically dry humping, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And then there's the other scene with Sin and Will, and they're supposed to be like the adventurous type, like kinky couple essentially, and they're just having boring sex as well, once again partially clothed, that I'm like, what is this movie? Who is this for? Is this for like a 13-year-old boy? Like, well, I don't understand.
Exactly. That's what I thought was weird about it. Because to me, I was like, oh, this could have been like, you know, a hard R-rated, like, you know, use this plot, do what you want to do. But I was like, it just always felt like they were too scared to go too far. And it was like, oh, I want kind of everybody to be able, you know, like I want younger teens to be able to kind of watch this and maybe think it's a little dangerous, even though it's not whatsoever, which, yeah, unfortunately, I just didn't think really worked. Now, I will say, I did enjoy Will and Sin's deaths. I thought those were pretty fun. And
they were pretty well executed.
Funny. And the twist. I did laugh at the twist where we find out that Will and Sin are actually brother and sister.
Okay.
And
I was like, what twist? There's so many like things in the movie that are marketed as a twist, but they're barely a twist.
But see, that was the thing where I was like, to me, this twist would have hit harder and been more of a gross out if this was more of an R-rated sex horror movie.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Than just watching people dry hump and stuff. Like, because I was
just like, if this was like a Jamie Lannister Cersei situation where we saw them going at it passionately multiple times, and then we know that they're brother and sister. Yeah, that's disgusting, right? And much more fitting for a movie that we thought this was marketed for. I have a couple other notes that I just want to get into. There is a neat camera move in this movie a couple of times. I actually thought some of the camera stuff was pretty inspired. The movie is pretty mid overall and bad in a lot of aspects, but there's a motif that they keep using is whenever they're breaking the locks into the room, where they smack the lock like 3 or 4 times and the camera jerks very specifically at like how much the lock is being unlocked, and I thought that was very good. There's some stuff where essentially discount Florence Pugh is going to bed, and it's tracking them like as they're sleeping and rolling around, but there's also like a robotic camera movement to it where it's gliding over her bed and kind of zooming in onto her, and they match cut to the time shifting. There was also a quadruple vertigo shot in this movie, which was so strange, where it's basically they're all coming onto each other at the same time, but in different scenarios, and they just do quadruple vertigo, and you don't know if anyone slept with one another. That obviously it's a very showy camera movement, and it's actually like relatively easy to do, so it's very overused. It's probably in another 2 or 3 movies on this list that we discuss, but it was definitely, I noticed it. There seemed to be some artistry, or at least some ambition behind some of the camera work at points in this movie that I just wanted to give it its due.
And I will say, probably in the near future, like I am going to go back. I'm interested because I know Mercedes Bryce Morgan that directed this. She did a film in 2022, Spoonful of Sugar, which was another Shudder original that I had heard like some pretty good things about. And I had heard a lot of people kind of hyping her up. And that's why I was really excited about this, because I had heard other kind of prominent horror mouthpieces be like, oh, like, you know, Mercedes Bryce Morgan is like one of these new ilk of horror directors that people need to be like kind of looking at. And so I will be interested to go back and look at that, because I'm hoping that will show me something other than this, because as you said, like other than some cool camera work, I definitely noticed that like that lock hitting, I did love that. And like I said, I thought the whole thing with Sin and on the boat and, you know, like just repeatedly killing
let's
her.
get into that. Yeah. I jumped past a couple of kills. I mean, this is a horror podcast. This movie, outside of the cold open, which to me feels like studio interference, or at least they're reviewing what they have and they're like, we need a harder opening to this movie. Yeah. It doesn't feel like it was in the original script. It's very much like they want to start off with some kills and sex because that's what the movie has been completely marketed on. And the rest of the movie isn't that. Like, it's literally, I think, 15 minutes at the end is the horror part where they're basically getting chased around and fighting one another. But in these fights, I did think that both of these deaths were pretty gnarly. Yeah. You know, Will with, what is it, the chainsaw?
Yeah,
that gets
the
him
chainsaw.
In the end? Dude, like when he like falls on it and it's kind of like cutting his face, and it's, I mean, I thought that
went way further than I thought it was going to go. And that was a very, very nice surprise. And then, with Sin on the boat, basically coming on the little boat, and, you know, they're like hitting at her. He cuts her hand off or something? Did he cut her hand off?
Yeah, when she's hanging. When she's hanging on. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, you know, like getting ate up by the motor, that's always a good time. Like, this was pretty cool. But this is the thing that's hard about these kind of movies, especially you have a cast of 4 really in this whole movie. So it's like all this stuff we're talking about, like, oh, that's a gnarly kill. That's kind of cool. Like, that's the last 5 minutes of the movie because they can't kill anybody yet.
Exactly. You don't have a movie at that point, right?
And unfortunately,
that's why this needed
boring.
Yeah, this needed to be essentially not just one couple getting away. It needed to be 2 or 3 different couples basically going to some lodges on the edge of a lake, and then one of them being double booked. And essentially being like, oh, do we just give up our cabin to this other couple? Or do we room with our friends and ruin their trip? We needed some other couples to throw wrenches into the dynamics. And we also needed more just sex with everybody. It needed to be way more problematic and chaotic. And essentially all this is like this dude getting upset that his girlfriend masturbates. Which is like, dude, get over it. that was my feeling. Also, I think this is just a fun little note. Well, fun's the wrong word for it. I thought the color grading on the blood near the end of the movie was way too dark. Yeah. And you have these 2 white people completely caked in blood, where it looks like they're doing bad blackface for the past, like, the last 2 to 3 minutes of the movie. And I'm not going to lie, it was a little distracting where I was like, this is tough. You should have done some better color grading on this, or at least some mixing with the practical blood. It was not a good look.
Yeah,
And
I agree with that 100%.
the ending, did you get the homage that they do with the final scene, what they're going for? The very last shot of the movie?
I'm trying to remember it now.
Have you seen the movie The Graduate? It's
I've never seen The Graduate, so obviously I wouldn't have gotten it.
Yeah, so that's one of the most like iconic endings of all time, where essentially they get married and they run off into the car outside, and basically it's this whole like rom-com drama of essentially them winding up together, going through all this adversity to basically make their love, make it happen. They get married, they run out to the car, but once they get in the car and drive off, they don't really know what their life is anymore. Like basically all of this love and romance was leading up to this point, but what does it look like after this point? And basically the director at the time, he just kept the camera rolling and just let the two actors kind of sit there. And he got this very natural look of essentially them just being like, what are we doing? Like, what are we filming? Like the movie is over and we've already acted. So he got this very naturalistic, like kind of boredom on their look of we don't know where to go from here. And they 100% do this at the end of this movie, where they have them both laughing like maniacally. And then we cut to a wide and they're both just sat in this boat with obviously this girl's head mangled in the water beside them. And they just sit there, look quietly and awkwardly, where I thought it was a cute homage. But this movie also had too many homages, or too many, like, it felt like it was lifting too many things that I don't know if I liked it as the ultimate ending.
Yeah, I see now I'll have to watch The Graduate, so I'll understand all these endings. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, like, once we had the deaths, I was kind of checked out of this movie. I was just like, all right.
One last note. In room number 3, you see a book called Entrapment by Edmund Kearns. He's an author that's dropped a couple of times in the movie. The book cover is eerily similar to the fan posters of Barbarian. And once again, I just say, can we not?
Just some
we
heavy,
get a nice close-up of it.
Barbarian love here.
Yeah, love, or just like plagiarism at this point, or it's too similar, so they have to kind of shine a light on it. I don't know. It didn't sit right with me. So yeah, this is one of those where I thought it was okay as a sort of relationship drama / thriller. If that's what you were going in for, with obviously some bad acting, if this was like a straight to Netflix, basically Lifetime movie for the most part, I'd be like, that's fine, whatever. But this was marketed as a horny horror movie, and it is very much not that.
Yeah.
But speaking of horny horror movies, our next pick is absolutely one. We're talking about Match. Match was directed by Danishka Esterhazy and written by Al and Joe Kaplan. And the story is as follows. After Paula is matched with a handsome online suitor, she arrives for a first date to discover a house full of dark and terrifying secrets. I just have to jump into this one. So I was watching it. Somewhere in my memory, in my mind, I knew about this movie. I was the one who put this movie forward to be on this list. And the reason why is just because I heard that this movie is insane in some aspects. They were like, you have to see it. There's some shit that happens in this movie that is like even too disgusting to mention. It's wild. You have to watch it. I didn't know it was a Tubi original going in. And I sure as hell didn't know that it was a Blue Ice Pictures production, which I have worked for. And hopefully no one's listening to this. It was one of the worst productions, if not the worst production I've ever worked on. It was a season 2 of a TV show that was like a horror TV show. And man, bad production. And I saw that and I just shivered. That was probably the scariest thing in this movie. Just the title card, the splash, when I was opening this. And also, Danishka, I've worked with her. I've worked with her for like probably a month on this other TV show. So this was crazy to just boot this movie up, not know, at least not when I put it forward, that we should choose it, and it'd be actually people that I worked with behind some of this. Wild beginning to Match.
So yeah, when I first turned this on, like literally I was laughing. Nothing had happened yet. I was just laughing because, as you said, you picked the movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, does he know this is it? Like, you're
I didn't know it was a Tubi movie.
You're well documented as a Tubi hater, and nothing made me more happy. I was like, oh, next thing you know, Colton's going to want to come on all the screams we do of Tubi movies. But you know what? You know what I say to that? I say, Tubi, we're so fucking back. We're so fucking back. Now, I will say, I wish I had, before I watched it, actually looked into Danishka.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize that she also did the Banana Splits movie, which I was actually a pretty big fan of.
I agree. I think that was a great movie.
Yeah. I mean, I remember me and X like randomly putting it on because we just wanted something dumb. And I remember we looked at each other and we were like, was that actually good? Like, yeah. And we were like, yeah, that was actually really good. I've never seen the Slumber Party Massacre remake, but I have heard it's pretty good.
I've heard that as well, and I also haven't seen it. So I haven't seen much of her work other than Banana Splits movie and then a couple of episodes of the show that I was, filming with her.
I was thinking, how wild would it be if I did my whole speech of like, first we had Jordan Peele, then we had Zach Krager, and now we have Danishka.
Listen, she was a great director to work with. I got nothing bad to say about her. Just the production company.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Production company was tough. Yeah.
This might be the most must watch in any movie we're going to talk about. I'm not saying that as like it's a slay. Like, I'm not saying whether or not it's overall better as a film, but this is like why I'm a fan of horror is this movie. Like,
this is entertaining. It is so stupid and so low budget and so like ham-fisted that I couldn't help kind of fall in love with it by the end of it. It was wild. This is so bad it's good for sure.
First, I have to ask. So the father in this, the blind father, was there at any point in this that you thought maybe for a little bit they had some sort of filter going on, like TikTok filter on his eyes? Because when they're talking to him through the iPad, it looked like he had googly eyes. And I was crying. I was like late at night. I was watching this and I was crying, laughing.
I thought there was something up with his eyes as well, but I didn't think of it as googly eyes. I just thought of it as like they seemed strangely too large.
Yeah,
for
they
his
were
face.
so big.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this like some weird TikTok filter they put over it? Just like, it was just so bizarre. And that, like, from that get-go of them talking, I was just dying laughing. Now, I'll say, concept for a movie, great concept. Like, great concept for, like, something of this ilk of just, like, dating app, obviously, like, we talk about a lot of influences on a lot of these movies. Yet another one, very Barbarian influenced, I would say.
Yeah. A little less obvious than Barbarian, I thought, or at least like it's like Barbarian because there's a gross monster in the basement. Like the setup of
don't
Barbarian.
Say that. Don't body shame like that, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I mean, we got Quasimodo in the basement, the Hunchback is here. But yeah, less obvious, I would think, than Bone Lake. Having a monster in your basement is not solely Barbarian's jurisdiction, I wouldn't think.
I'd like, for the listeners, if you're listening, you haven't watched this, please watch it. But if you're not going to watch it, or you're going to wait till you hear what we have to say about it, I just want you to first, with no context, listen to this note I had written as I first watched this film. And did I like this film? I've watched this 3 times in the last 2 weeks, just showing people, because it's been a great time. Because the first little bit when you show it to people are like, oh, like, what's this guy?
Why are we watching this straight to like Lifetime movie?
And then every single person, I get to see their eyes light up at just certain scenes, and then it's just chaos. But I have written in my notes, what the fuck does Colton have me watching? Mom's just jerking sons off and shit.
Listen, I didn't know what I was getting us into. I didn't read any spoilers for this movie, and I was just as shocked as you were. Obviously, I turned this on, and instantly I was like, this looks so budget. This looks so bad. The audio is so tinny. The lighting is unflattering. The acting, not great. Lots of weird little like stylistic choices in it, the unsolicited dick pics, the weird text message stuff. Everything was kind of not working for me. And then even like the introduction, the main conceit of the movie, I was like, would a grown woman just hang out with a dude's mother on the first date?
Yeah.
Of like meeting up with him at his house and stuff. I was like, this is just, I don't know if any of this makes sense. But when we got to her going into the basement and we're watching, and it's kind of masochistic to describe the scene, but you have to watch it.
Yeah.
Because it's very much like Quasimodo, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, is waddling out and he's supposed to impregnate our main character. And he's walking towards her and she starts vomiting and she like vomits some stew on the floor and he slips in it and smokes his head off the bed frame near him. Oh my God. I just about died laughing. I had to put a video clip up on our story. Just, no explanation, just throwing it up there. Basically said, hey, new episodes coming soon. And I just thought, I was like, okay, we're off to the races. And then to get that scene that you're describing afterwards, where it's like, so what do you do when you see a pretty girl? Have you been practicing like I showed you? And then she jerks her son off, spits in her hand, and reaches down his pants. And just like we get a hard cum shot on his mother's hand. It was diabolical. It was like so disgusting and so fucked up that I was literally like, first of all, Danishka, you're a freak. I didn't realize you had it like this. This is like impressive when I'm watching this. I'm like, damn, I worked with her. She was great. I just didn't realize she had this in her. And this was also like, what the fuck am I watching? I had no idea where this was going to go. And that is probably the most messed up part of the movie, but there's a lot of other weird things in here as well.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, our boy Henry here, our Quasimodo guy, just horse-sized cock, just big.
Yeah, absolute. It's like my forearm dangling down between his legs. And of course, he has to have some skin lesions and bumps on it. It can't just be a normal horse-sized cock. It has to be disgusting and deformed. And I've mentioned Chekhov's a couple of times in this this episode, but we get Chekhov's mousetrap, which has one of the stupidest setups I've ever seen, where she's walking through a hallway with a match that's already well lit. The hallway is, and she's looking around, and I think she says something like, "Oh, watch out, mouse traps," and it's just her, and I'm like, okay, what on earth? And then she steps in one, and they treat this mouse trap on her toes for the rest of the movie like it's a debilitating illness that she'll never recover from, and she can't barely walk the rest of the movie. Meanwhile, I've seen like Kenny versus Spenny rolling around in hundreds of these. We've seen the Jackass boys putting them in places where they shouldn't go, and then what's his face? Quasimodo, he gets one on the end of his horse cock at one point in this movie.
It's wild.
And I just couldn't believe what I was watching. Once again, I was shocked in this movie that we had this setup of the mousetrap, which was the most convoluted, terrible setup I've seen in a movie, have such a payoff. That once again, I was kind of applauding. I said, you know what? You had me in the first half, but this was excellent.
Shout out to the makers of this mousetrap, because not only does it just destroy her foot, he can't get it off of his penis. Like, he can't, it's a tiny trap, and he's like struggling to lift it off there. So, I mean, whatever this metal and the springs are made out of, just great quality products. The springs are
tightened to such a level that, they'll circumcise this guy before he knows it.
Every bit of this, like every 10 minutes in this, I thought it would just take this delightful twist and turn, because like every time I thought I figured the movie out, they would just go in some wild direction. Like, we find Eli, we find out who she thinks Henry is actually Eli.
I thought Henry was AI. That's where I thought this movie was, because we get such a weird introduction. Or not Henry. Is it Henry? Eli?
Well, this is the
pretty boy.
The pretty boy is Eli, but she thinks it's Henry when she first talks to him.
God, if a listener is listening to this and hasn't seen this movie, they're just so confused and they think we're completely manic. But essentially, the pretty boy that lures her here, where she matches with him, she gets like a 10-second conversation with him on video chat that looks AI to me. So when I was watching it, I was like, oh, okay, obviously it's also not only leaning into a Of course it's hard to be a 28-year-old super attractive woman on a dating app, and you can't find a single man who's worth anything. Also, you have to learn with AI now. You have to deal with AI and on everything. So I thought that's where we were going. But no, he's real. And I was like, okay, where is this going? And when in that scene where we're with them, there's a line where he says, "Look at what she did to me." And we cut to a wide, and I was so confused with what she did to him. I was like, did she just turn his pants into jorts? Like, what are we looking at here? I had no idea that, like, he was paralyzed from waist down. I was just like, what happened?
The twists of this are so wild. The logic of it, absolute nonsense. I couldn't understand. So you get kidnapped by this crazy mother, which I do want to say, Diane Simpson, like, revelation find. I looked at her. She's been in like 3 low budget movies. That's it. And I thought she was fantastic as like crazy mom, like just hamming it up. I thought she was like a highlight
such a like
for me.
Corny, campy performance. It's insane.
But so you get kidnapped, you get drugged. And I just kept thinking all the things I would probably be willing to do to myself so I don't continuously sleep in random rooms in this dungeon basement. Because every room she goes into, she has to, like, sleep for an hour or 2.
And it's weird. It just seems like she's traveling down the same hall over and over again.
I'm sure she is, too.
Exactly.
Yeah. I thought that was the funniest part about it. I'm like, oh, like the bathroom scene, I understand because she was drugged and she obviously slept all night. You know, I'm like, okay, well, Henry's knocked out. The mom comes bring the breakfast down or whatever. So that makes sense. She passed out in the bathroom. But I was like, then she goes in the room with the baby. Or the hallucination of the baby.
So good.
And her dad, she also is asleep in that room. So I'm like, she's probably not drugged anymore. But she's still just going in the rooms like, oh, you know what I should do? I should probably sleep, even though Quasimodo is supposedly going to every room hunting me down.
Yeah, you got to get a few winks in.
You got to get some winks in.
Her adrenaline, you know, she's actually experiencing the twist of this movie in real life. So, you know, her adrenaline's crashing every 10 minutes, just like us when we're watching it, just like cackling at the top of our lungs at what we're seeing. You mentioned the baby. He has his papa's eyes and cut to this, this deformed baby being attached to her by its umbilical cord. For a second, I thought it wasn't a dream sequence. I just thought like something happened in this movie because this movie is so bizarre with what it's doing that it would have just kind of fit if she had a deformed baby for the rest of the movie for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, there's no twist too wild in this film. And, you know, that's what makes it so endearing. And another thing that I thought fantastic about this, 99 minutes. Like, this is like, it's just in and out. It's exactly what it should be. You're having all these wild twists and turns. I know I'm not going to be sitting here for 3 hours, although I think I'd enjoy 3 hours. It's just because if you gave him that much time, I don't know what other twists and turns are. But, you know, there's even more twists. We find out Eli is Henry's brother. Apparently, It's just one's beauty, one's the beast, I guess. And, you know, trap the pretty boy up because he's got no legs. So, because like you said, I thought they make it seem as if Lucille has just cut his legs off, but then we find out in like a picture later on that actually he's just born an amputee. They show a picture on the side stand where he has no legs as a kid.
What?
Yes.
What? When I was watching, he definitely had legs.
No, there's no legs on him.
No,
I'm pretty
no
sure
way.
he doesn't
Are you
have
serious?
legs.
Did I miss that?
Maybe it just looked like he had no legs because I was like, oh
man,
shit.
when I was watching it, no joke, he was wearing cut off shorts with legs.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to.
I gotta go back for another watch.
Now.
There's no fucking way I missed something like that. That's insane. I can't argue with you over whether or not he has legs, but I swear to God, he had legs. But you've seen it 3 times. You're the match master.
I mean, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I'm not paying that much attention to the pictures in the background or whatever. But we're talking about Wild. You also have a scene where, because we get introduced to Natalie, who's like this flight attendant. We just have Lucille sexting Natalie, like making her
play with your hoo-ha for me.
Yeah, and like just this movie doesn't let up. And like the scenes with Natalie and Lucille are awesome. They're hilarious. They're like, it's not brilliant writing, but it's just super funny because obviously Natalie's like sending fake pictures of her, like a more traditional, like model-esque looking girl. Natalie's like a thicker girl, and Lucille hates
basically
that.
Her pictures don't match her dating profile, and Lucille now believes that she's not a good enough match for her son.
Yeah, Lucille, fat phobic, definitely. Yeah, for sure.
And there's basically a scene where it's probably just 5 minutes of Lucille essentially trying to find a way how to feed Natalie these tranquilizers or these drugs, and she's just like not willing to drink or eat anything, and then Lucille is just basically calling her fat. She's just basically like, but you're a cow, you should eat more, sort of shit. And it's just such a bizarre scene, once again, where I was just like, where is this going? And then not only does she show up, but also, what was it? It's like her sister and her ex-boyfriend also shows up, who looks like a high school bully with a receding hairline. And this guy just sucks as well. What's his name? Is it Ryan? I think it's Ryan.
Yes, Ryan. It is Ryan.
Yeah, he's just so awful. He shows up and I'm like, I hate this guy instantly when I see him on screen for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, it just, this takes so many wild turns. I'm just gonna let you know right now, if someday we're gonna work something out. Someday, some city, It Slays Podcast is gonna like put on a movie in the theater, and I will get the rights to match, and it will play in the theater. Listen, if this had played in the theater, I would have paid $25 to see this. I would have been so happy with any money I spent. This movie was so fun. It was so, like, it was such a good time. Like I said, it's like super light. This is one of those movies, as I've already done 3 times, like, that you can just like show people and it's wild. They're gonna yell at you, why are you making me watch this? You're gonna laugh evilly. I just had such a good time with this movie.
Oh man, the musical fake out, basically to come in and save the day when they're gonna get bludgeoned by, I think it's like a bat with nails in it or something. And essentially an alarm goes off and it plays a key piece of music that subdues Quasimodo and basically is like, okay, never mind, I'll let you live. But then, then they actually call the dad, and Quasimodo's about to kill them again, and they start singing the song for their father, and it subdues him a second time. Nobody expects the second musical fake out. Nobody does that. We're breaking new ground here. I couldn't believe that they did the same beat twice within 2 minutes. Incredible stuff. Just great work.
I mean, if we ever go into the territory of celebrity interviews, Danishka is the first celebrity interview I want. She's my celebrity.
Absolutely. Quick notes just with the ending. We got to get to it.
Oh,
there's a gnarly bat kill in this with Ryan or whatever. It's pretty good effect. I thought that was great. Although it does somehow knock like a dozen teeth on the floor when the bat kind of hits him in the cheek. And then we cut to a different side where it looks like it's also in his top jaw. And I was like, okay, very good, whatever. But the machinations of the ending about how everyone dies, it is so confusing because essentially everyone just stands in a room and waits for their turn. It's like one guy gets pushed in his wheelchair to guard a bullet getting shot, and he gets shot in the heart. The sister gets stabbed in the throat with like a jagged wine bottle across her throat. I just didn't know what was happening in this scene. It was so bizarre. Oh, and then Quasi comes in and lifts Lucille and like basically bashes her head into the ceiling like 100 times. Yeah. Crazy.
And then crushes her head with his feet.
And then crushes her head. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I was very surprised that they killed, I think it's Maria, right? Is it
the sister?
Maria, the sister. I didn't think they were going to do that, so I was like, oh shit. Like, that's what I mean. This movie doesn't give a shit. They're like, we're killing pretty much everybody. Everybody's dying. These people don't need to live.
Yeah, I don't know. This one was surprising to me. I wouldn't go so far to say it was good, obviously. But once again, as I said, so low budget, so stupid, kind of so bad it's good, that it's unintentionally hilarious and entertaining. And it's just like a watch when you're watching it. You're going to be constantly surprised. Obviously, we spoiled most of it now, but as someone who was going in who was just told, like, you're going to see things you haven't seen before, they were correct. And with that, let's get to our next pick, The Long Walk. The Long Walk was directed by Francis Lawrence and written by J.T. Molnar. And the story is as follows. A group of teenage boys compete in an annual contest known as the Long Walk, in which they must maintain a certain walking speed or get shot. The Long Walk. This one came out when I was at TIFF back in September, I believe, and there was probably some discussion about covering it on the show, I would think at that time.
Yeah.
This is probably the biggest release on this list, I think, that we just didn't cover. And I think for me, it was just the timing with work and the fact that I just watched, 30 movies in a week and a half, that it was the sort of thing where my schedule didn't line up. And I'm really surprised that you and Jill didn't cover this one, though. This seems like a movie that probably would have been up her alley.
Yeah. So this one, I mean, obviously, this had been brought up just because, it's based off of Stephen King's story. The marketing I thought was interesting for this because I thought it was kind of, I wasn't sure if it was like Hunger Game, esque. I was like, oh, this kind of seems...
It was directed by Francis Lawrence, who did the Hunger Games movie.
Well, and I was like, this kind of seems like it's aimed at like that kind of, like teen audience young or adult. Whatever. Mm-hmm. And I also wasn't even sure. I remember the marketing. I was 100% sure it was actually like a horror movie or anything. So with Match being the like, this is batshit crazy surprise, for me, I thought this was like the most pleasantly surprised for me. Oh. Because I really didn't go into this. I hadn't heard any reviews. All I'd really heard about this was the political discourse around it, that it was getting review bombed and the American conservatives were trying to get people to boycott it because Stephen King's woke and, hates Donald Trump. So they were like, you can't support Stephen King. So I hadn't really heard, like, is the movie good? And off the bat, I'm here to say I thought this was pretty well done.
It's funny that you say you never heard anything about the movie. For me, I kind of missed a lot of the political discourse. The only people I heard kind of discussing it, I believe, was on Amon, R.I.P., that Patrick and the gang over there. They were discussing The Long Walk, and they were talking about it as the most like harrowing movie they've seen in years, specifically because they live in the United States, and obviously gun control and the lack thereof is very much an issue, a hot button topic down in the States all the time. But for me also, I was hearing so much awards buzz in terms of, you have to, horror performances are great. You have to look at Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson. Their performances are amazing. This was one of those releases that got loads of 5 stars across the board on people that I follow on Letterboxd. So this was one that I was probably a week and a half late to seeing. And I'm not going to lie, I was just a little underwhelmed.
I like this. I like when this happens.
Don't get me wrong. I think it's good. I think it's a good movie. I think maybe if I watched it after I hadn't already seen like 30 movies the week before, and probably after a long day of work, maybe I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. But The Long Walk to me felt like a bit of a long movie as I was watching it.
I didn't really feel that way. I did feel it was long the more time I had to spend with Cooper Hoffman. I was not a Cooper Hoffman guy.
Oh, no. Okay.
I don't know if it was Cooper Hoffman more so than like Ray, the character. I was just like, fuck this guy, man. He's so annoying. I want to quote Mike. What I think Mike would say, I believe he would refer to David Johnson as eating in this. Like, I thought he was so absurdly good in this and doing such like complex character work kind of compared to everyone else that I was just like, I was going to say I'm transfixed whenever he's on the screen. He's on the screen the entire fucking time because they're just all walking. But
yeah, exactly.
But I thought he was just like, the character was so interesting. My attention was just really perked up because, like I said, I went into this not really knowing what this was going to be like, and kind of also thinking, because when I did watch this, I watched this before we plotted this episode out.
Yeah.
So when I watched this, I was just watching this because, hey, this was one I missed and I'm going to check it out some night here. And I'm like, well, what kind of movie is this? And then guess what? Boom, they blow a fucking kid's head off. Like, essentially just blow his face apart. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, okay, maybe this isn't the Hunger Games.
Yeah, the gun violence in this movie, it's pretty gnarly at times for sure. And especially
Super
when it's
gnarly.
Obviously children or teenagers, whatever, getting their heads blown off. I feel like we're in different territory, that this is pretty, upsetting stuff. I will say, just due to the sheer amount of kids getting mowed down in this movie probably every 5 minutes, it is a bit exhausting is the wrong word for it, but basically it lacks impact the longer it goes on. And I don't think that isn't thematically relevant and basically also kind of motioning to how people just do lose arguing about this issue all the time. People, kids in the States, they're getting mowed down's a terrible word for it, but they're being slaughtered every couple of weeks. Yeah. And essentially people are just exhausted having this conversation so much that it just falls on the back burner. So the fact that I was kind of having that experience in a microcosm when watching this movie, it was interesting. That idea wasn't lost on me, but it is very much a one-note movie. Feels like too strong of a word for it, but it is. The movie is what the title says. It's the long walk. They are walking, and the entire movie is them walking and talking to one another, and slowly, one by one, they get picked off. And there's a bit more flavor to how that happens. Maybe someone just gives up and, sits down. Maybe someone tries to turn a gun on the people shooting them. Maybe someone tries to escape and run into a building to get away. Maybe one of them kind of kills the other, sort of thing. There's lots of different variations, but the end result is the same, that it always results in someone basically getting shot in the head or shot in the chest.
I mean, the other thing I really liked about it was I really enjoyed, let's try not to murder this. I think it's like Tut Naut was his name.
Oh.
Who, I mean, another young actor. This is like their third or fourth credit. This is like their first big movie.
Oh, yes. Arthur in the movie. Okay.
Yeah. I thought he was so fantastic in this as well. Like,
it's been a minute since I've seen the movie. Is he the one that winds up basically his body just breaking down on him? He has like the nosebleed.
Yeah, he has the nosebleeds and just like harrowing like death. They were really sad. And that's the thing with these kind of movies, and very similar to a Hunger Games style, where some kids are getting mowed down, as you say, that I don't really know anything about, so I'm like, okay. And then some of these characters, they do build some great character development, like with Arthur. And so I'm actually like, oh, this is actually like, I'm pretty impacted by him going, and especially where he goes, not because, they just blow his brains out. He ends up he basically dies before they shoot him, essentially.
Yeah. Because
he's like having these like brain aneurysms or whatever it is. And I think I was just pleasantly surprised because of what I thought this was going to be. I thought this was going to be a lot more toned down than it actually was. I thought Mark Hamill, I'm really loving this era of Mark Hamill, just like hammy villains, doing basically a version of his crazy Joker voice in the animated series. But I thought he was fantastic in this. Is kind of just like, even, blank faced, sunglasses on, just kind of the definition of just like big government just not caring, and just like,
like the military industrial complex, just chewing through these young men. Yeah, absolutely.
And I thought he was fantastic in this, and obviously, they had the drama of like Raymond's dad, also standing against the military, a lot of kind of like Fahrenheit 451 stuff going on here of like censorship governments. Like you said, very politically charged movie.
Even a little bit more, just to go back to that moment. It's been months since I've watched this movie, and obviously I've read little blurbs and watched a quick recap just, to refresh things in my mind. But that moment in the movie, you said you weren't a big Cooper Hoffman fan. When Raymond's talking about his dad and talking about how he opened up his mind, explained philosophy, basically showed him like a different way of life out of this like brutalism. And the fact that Philip Seymour Hoffman is no longer with us and Cooper Hoffman has kind of carried the torch, or at least he's been trying to he's only gotten to acting after his father passed. I thought that was a very poignant and kind of touching speech where, once again, I think some of these performances, the lines between like their actual person and the character they're playing blur a little bit, where I think Cooper Hoffman and some of the words that he's saying there's an extra emotional layer to it, where he's not only talking about Raymond's dad in the movie, he's talking about his own dad, Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's obviously a late great actor.
I didn't realize this was his kid.
Yeah.
Till right now, you saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. so yeah, that moment hits a little bit harder, I think, like when you watch it with like the full context, for sure. I guess what's left to talk about this movie is more so just the ending.
Yeah.
How did you feel about it? Look, leading into the ending, essentially, if I remember correctly, Ray for the entire movie is essentially saying that he wants to wish for a gun at the end and kill the Major. And basically try it won't put an end to the institution, but it'll make a statement on like the largest broadcast. And from what I remember, Peter for most of the movie is more hopeful, like that he wants to try and make change. I think he talks about almost like that Hunger Games idea of like wishing for 2 winners instead of 1. Or at one point, I think he talks about donating all the money to like help orphans, so hopefully they don't have to subject themselves to these sort of treatments that they've been going through. But obviously at the end of the movie, that's not what happens. And Ray gives up, essentially lets him die because he doesn't believe that he's worthy to win here, that Peter should get it. And Peter, in that moment, after seeing his friend, after they walked, like 330 miles together, get gunned down, he wishes for a gun, kills the Major, and then walks away, which obviously is very much like a surreal walking into the afterlife. Everyone disappears and it's just him all by himself walking away. I thought this worked. I liked the ending, even though it is a very dour, downbeat ending of basically this character's hope and optimism getting crushed. But I mean, look at what sort of movie we're watching.
Yeah, I think that's why the ending kind of really took me for surprise. Just because, like I said, once you're introduced to the concept of the movie, and obviously the guy that's directing and stuff, like, you just can't help but keep thinking about that, like, Hunger Games kind of thing where, like Hunger Games, even though there's like kids dying, they're always kind of ending with like this optimism and hope, and every move that goes on, like things are bad, but we're gonna rise.
Yeah.
And, especially towards the ending when Peter's like kind of revealing like his childhood and that he's been through like homes and all this stuff, and keeping that optimism, like, not only is it fantastic, like it's absolutely heartbreaking and stuff, but yeah, like I thought just such a, like you said, just such this like sad ending of like, he just kind of gives it up and says, oh, you know what, like I am gonna just, kill the Major and hopefully that'll like wake people up, but like, fuck it. I thought it was interesting because when I was reading up about it, like, so they did shoot an alternate ending to it that I saw where he doesn't kill the Major.
Yeah, I also believe that the ending is different from the book entirely.
Yeah,
if I'm
I don't know anything. I
can't remember the details, but I think Ray is the one who wins and survives in the book. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw the alternate ending they shot. He doesn't kill the Major, and then he simply just, he like sends money in envelopes every month to like Ray's mom, Arthur's grandmother, Hank's, is his name Hank? Hank's
that's a very
widow.
hopeful, optimistic ending that I don't think with the state of the world when this came out would have been the right choice.
No, I think they made the right choice because to me, and that might just be me, but to me, I was like, I think if it was optimistic, it would have almost cheapened what they're like trying to say. Yeah, where I think they need to give this real depiction. But yeah, I mean, just overall, I thought this was pretty good. Like I said, it was something totally different than what I expected, and what I got, I was very pleasantly surprised with, and like I said, I thought David Johnson was so good in this. It's kind of like it's the Alien Romulus thing where I also really liked him in that, and I just continue to be like, we need to get this guy in like so much more stuff.
Yeah, he's an actor to watch for sure. And with that, how about we get into Rabbit Trap? Rabbit Trap was written and directed by Bryn Cheney, and the story is as follows. Married couple Daphne and Darcy Davenport are two musicians who moved from London to a cottage in Wales to complete their new album. By accident, they record a mystical sound never heard before, and gradually disconnect from reality. I think that might be one of the weaker descriptions for a movie that we're covering. I don't know if that's synopsis really covers what this movie's about. This movie is essentially Dev Patel winding up being a little bit like Blowout, recording stuff out in the countryside. Of course, he does capture a weird sound, and of course, they are obsessed with that for a little bit. But this movie quickly changes shape into a fairy folk tale, basically a changeling story, and I'm not quite sure how I felt about that.
This one I had really complicated feelings with because all the parts on paper I should kind of like. Like, I like the folk horror. I like, the musician, the music aspect, the sound stuff. So I know I'm going to get a lot of sound design, a lot of music, stuff like that. But it's just kind of like the sum of all these parts together just didn't really seem to coalesce how I wanted to. It really felt to me like the script and stuff needed a couple more passes. Like, I thought narratively it's pretty weak. Like, there's a lot of stuff that they introduce or talk about that they either don't talk about again at all, or just totally, it never comes up again. Like, it just has no real meaning to it. The stuff they do talk about and introduce, I'm never happy about a movie that while I'm watching it, I keep having to pause because I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. And I'm like, I don't really understand what you're trying to say about what is going on, and that's never a good thing. Like, there's one thing about being obscure, but it seemed narratively like he was like, oh yeah, this is what I'm talking about, or this is what I'm doing, and I was just like, the vibe's there, but I'm just not, it feels incoherent to me.
Yeah, I think some of the things the movie's talking about get a little bit clearer by the end of the movie. Now, not crystal clear, it's still very symbolic and metaphorical, and what certain things mean we'll discuss in 5-10 minutes. But this, I will agree with you that technically, I think this is one of the most technically great movies or well done movies we've covered on this episode. I think this is the largest dearth between technical prowess and pacing, because I agree with you. Everything was working for me on a technical level, and a lot of these things I do like. Like, I like this idea of the obsession with the analog technology of recording back in the day, using the oscilloscope to kind of visually showcase the weird designs and basically what's being captured in the sound. I loved a lot of the set design, the costuming. I like these actors.
Yeah.
I think everything should be working, but I completely agree that it's the script and the pacing that lets everything down. And I think this is a movie that, as I was watching it, I felt stupid.
Yeah.
And I think this movie is another one of those where it believes that everyone is proficient and knowledgeable in Welsh mythology and folklore, and specifically the intricacies of how that relates to fairies and fairy circles and all this sort of thing, which, don't get me wrong, I'm somewhat familiar with, because we've covered a couple of other movies regarding fairies and changelings. It's just, it's not explained in the world of the movie, where a lot of it just is kind of maddening.
Yeah.
As I'm watching it. And then the pacing is also slow. So it's like I'm watching this maddening, beautiful movie that technically I think everything works, but I just do not care at all about what's unfolding on screen.
I mean, as someone that knows really nothing about fairy mythology and stuff, it was very maddening to me because, it's stuff like the fairy circles, this changeling character of the child or whatever, it's like, oh, you don't want to walk in there and stuff, but I don't know why. I don't know what the importance of it is. It's just kind of like the warning, oh, you don't want to do that. And so many things that happens with the child. Just like I didn't get what was going on. Like I said, I felt there was too many things just not strong enough explained to me. I'm assuming, did you get the vibe? Like I know that the trauma, you know, of Darcy is from his father. Obviously, he says it's about his father. Did you get the vibe? I'm getting the vibe that it seemed like it was some sort of like sexual trauma.
I agree.
Because he's eating like the juicy peach and he's like shoving it into his mouth and doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was just, like I said, this was just like real bizarre, and it sucks because I really liked it visually. I thought probably of all the everything we've talked about, I thought the score was really minimal, but like it was probably my favorite score of anything.
Very effective. Yeah.
The sound design's amazing, and you know, we love a slow burn. We love that kind of thing. But then there was also stuff where I was like, I feel like there's some stuff in other folk horror movies that do scenes in this that like, except those movies are like a little better.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that immediately made me think of Garland's Men was, you know, Darcy looking in this tunnel and we have a sound that's echoing through the tunnel. And I'm like, this is literally, they did this in Men, except I was more interested in that. And it had somewhat of a more coherent thing of what was going on.
Still a little incoherent there at the end, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just really, I don't know if I need another pass at this movie or not. Like, I almost felt like maybe the movie, maybe the pretension was just like turned up a little bit too much. Like the movie, I thought it was a little smarter than it actually was, just because if it's not landing, I feel like it's not that smart. So
yeah, there's some things in this movie that I like it conceptually. So the idea of the trauma, there's this idea, or it's said at one point in the movie by like speaking it makes it real. And there's also this fascination in the movie with like spells and like, you know, was a spell cast on them? Was anything ever verbalized? But is it still real? I like that idea. There's hints that the actress in this movie, her character may have had like a miscarriage or something at some point, because they're, you know, he's constantly, he wants to start their family, but also he's asking her constantly, like, is she strong enough? Is she weak? Is she feeling all right? Where it's never explicitly said or even hinted at other than some dialogue, but like I get that vibe in the movie that this was two people that tried to start a family, but something went sideways and they didn't do it. So now they're getting presented with this rabbit trap, which essentially earlier in the movie they talk about how do you catch a rabbit? You have to show it something it likes. And essentially what this movie is the fairies present them with something they like in being a kid, this boy, that essentially they're going to have a family and they'll see what it works. But they're pushing it away for so much of the movie. And basically this child is an absolute nightmare in the movie that it's interesting to watch this all unfold. I think the movie just gets too cute. I think like that moment where essentially they repeat what a rabbit trap is and Dev Patel just kind of goes, okay, after fighting this child, we're not going to fight it anymore. We're just going to welcome the child in. And then it's like their house starts merging with the natural world and they start growing fungus on each other. And it's essentially like
very Annihilation.
It's this idea of the trauma from Dev Patel's character being represented as this fungus, as like this rot, but also it's kind of spreading to them as well, where I think it's like conceptually, I think it's the idea of like him not wanting to have a child to possibly repeat what his father did, but also this trauma, not being sure how it's going to affect those around him that he loves. So like, I like all of this. It's just the movie is a little bit, it's not clear in this message really. And it's not clear until like right at the end. And clear is still, once again, it's an overstatement. But when you have this child who starts leaking mustard out of their orifices and turning into a rabbit, and the movie's called Rabbit Trap, and we understand that, you know, the rabbit was lured in with something they like, so it works both ways, that this child found a family, so now they can pass on and go to rest, but also the family found a child, which was something they're missing from their life, and now they can progress and carry on to whichever they go. I like it all. It's just so fucking weird with the way they do it.
Yeah.
That I don't know why they went this way. And also, the ultimate ending of this movie, I thought was so effective and so emotional that I wish the rest of the movie could have landed like this. The idea of a Foley artist harboring this dark secret from his partner from childhood trauma, not being strong enough to verbalize it. So he goes out in the Highland, out in like the meadows, and just quietly says it into the mic to then share it with her, but we're never, as the audience, we're never looped in. I loved that ending. It kind of made me wonder, why the fuck did we have anything to do with the changeling and the fairies in this movie? Wouldn't the movie have been just as successful if somehow, like, the sound was communicating with them? If it was actually driving them mad, like the synopsis that I read says it is? It's bizarre. I don't know why we needed all the folk horror stuff, because I love folk horror as well. I just don't think it merged with a lot of what this movie was handling.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things too, like, you know, especially where we get the scene where the child's bringing Daphne into whatever, the fairy world or whatever, the trees, and Patel's in the, Darcy's in the cave and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, I had to look that up. I'm like, I have no fucking idea what's going on, like what this is supposed to represent. Like, yeah. It's showing me these angles of trees like I'm watching Evil Dead, but I like, I'm like, are the trees coming alive? What's the deal here? There's something going on. And I just, to me, it's not an enjoyable time when it's like, I've got to look up what I'm being presented, because it's like, there's not even like an inkling. I had no idea what was going on. And then it doesn't fucking matter. None of it actually matters. To me, this is like a hard vibes movie, like vibe and style over the actual substance.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's definitely, as I mentioned, technically brilliant, narratively, not so much. I did understand probably a little bit more than you, just because of like, I am familiar somewhat with fairies and changelings and shit, and there was obviously that in this movie. But I still think this was like too opaque for its own good. And it reminded me a lot of The Green Knight, which Dev Patel did a few years ago, which was another movie that I just had to admit that I was too stupid and I didn't know like Arthurian legend enough to understand everything. So he has a weird fascination towards being drawn to these folk horror stories, and I just wish they would explain a little bit more. I don't mind having to grasp at some metaphors and think a little bit for myself, but like this one very much tested my patience the longer it went on, even though it was beautiful to look at and listen to for the most part. And next up, we have The Woman in the Yard. The Woman in the Yard was directed by Yom Colette Sarah and written by Stan. Our boy, exactly. What was it? Carry On?
Carry On.
Yeah. And written by Sam Stefanak, and the story is as follows. A mysterious woman repeatedly appears in a family's front yard, often delivering chilling warnings and unsettling messages, leaving them to question her identity, motives, and the potential danger she might pose.
Do people shut off the episode if I was like, our boy, Black Adam? Hell yeah.
Oh, did he do Black Adam as well?
He did do Black Adam.
Oh, God. Okay. Oof. That's tough. Well, Carry On is a lot of fun. And I think The Woman in the Yard is a movie that got a lot more hate than what I believed it should have. Now, it's been a long time since I've seen this. The last time, or when I watched this originally, I believe it was in April. And I searched our messages because I was like, man, we were definitely going to do an episode of The Woman in the Yard at some point. And this is one where I watched it, and I don't believe you watched it, and I got busy with work, and then that was it.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. You watched it, and then I think you ended up going back to work early before I saw it, and then that was the end of it.
So what'd you think?
So this one, I was a little conflicted about, because I agree. I don't know if it should have got the flack it got. I always appreciate kind of original horror stories. Like, you know, this isn't a franchise, nothing like that. So I think that's very interesting. I thought the performances overall in this are like very good. I thought like some very strong performances. Danielle Deadweiler, the lead of this, I thought did a fantastic job. The majority after that, I kind of just, I think it falls apart past the performances. I thought the story to this was pretty thin. I get the original idea and concept. I think by the third act, this just goes fucking haywire.
So I would agree with that point. I like the story. I don't even know if it was thin to me. I really enjoyed the idea of this mother having survivor's guilt, struggling with suicidal ideology, basically not wanting to be around anymore without her husband, and kind of battling with her physical ailment from the accident, but also with her children. And so much like her and her son in the movie, I remember like they go at each other's throats throughout the movie. And I think Daniel Deadweiler like sold it so much, but her son, Peyton Jackson as well. I really liked kind of their fierce dueling throughout the movie. I also liked the idea of just like this woman in the yard, you know, the woman in black, essentially just out there, funeral attire, sat there watching. And for so much of the movie, she was kind of a force or a presence, but it was never explicitly shown what her powers were or what she was doing. I just liked her being there. I thot it was good. She just slowly was moving closer. All that stuff was good. A couple of decent jump scares. I remember there was like one in around what was it, the garage with the truck, where essentially where the kid is going to see if he can get the truck going. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen this, so a lot of it's blurry, but there was stuff like that I really enjoyed. The dog, what happened to the dog, you know, just vanishing, the poor dog. All that stuff I really enjoyed. It's when it jumps the shark and she goes inside.
Yeah.
I was like, why did we ever need her inside?
She should have just been the presence outside. And that really, to me, was the issue, is once it gets inside, there's so many kind of ideas, I guess, of what he's envisioning this woman in the yard like can do and to them and all this stuff. And we get in the attic and we're doing like she's the shadow and, you know, she's the reflection in the mirror and all this stuff. And it's just this, yet again, like this, another movie that is just like, the third act to me was almost the most offensively incoherent of anything we talked about today, just because I felt so strongly of how much I like that simple premise. Like, to me, that's like, it's just like a golden premise. Like, there's something in the yard, we don't know what it is or why it's there, and we need to like figure that out, and we have all this turmoil going on. Like, what a awesome, you know, because you get that family drama and stuff, but you also get that like outside terror and horror. But yeah, then to me, this just turns into like some stupid schlock I'd see in, I don't know, like what I imagine a Annabelle movie is or something.
Exactly. For whatever reason, I was thinking about the latest Conjuring movie.
Yes.
Where it's the families together just fighting this mirror thing and reflections, and it's a bunch of garbage. That's what I remember the third act being. Basically a bunch of nonsense in the attic and like shadow stretching along and trying to grab them and stuff like that, which I really didn't like. What I will say is it kind of wins me over again in the end because it has another incredibly bleak ending. Like this is, I remember watching this in theaters and I was like, there's no way the mother's gonna kill herself at the end of this movie. There's no way. She sends her children away. The woman in the yard shows her basically a vision of her children doing well and succeeding without her, and basically just being like this force that's dragging them down. And she does it. I couldn't believe it. And then we get like a snippet to essentially like she did it and she passed on to like a happier plane. You know, she's living kind of her dream where her children and the dog are all back, and she named the farmstead and all this stuff. And I was just thought it was such a heavy ending. It's an ending that they should have had happen 15 minutes sooner, because if you skipped out a lot of the nonsense in the third act and just really focused it on the family drama and this son stepping up to kind of take over his father's role, and this mother that basically doesn't want to be around anymore, and kind of just like all the intricacies of that, I think it just would have been a stronger movie. I don't know if we need kind of the Blumhouse scary bullshit at the end of the movie.
Yeah, no, and I felt the same way. I also was like, oh, there's, you know, they're gonna fight the demon, and then they'll live as a happy family. So when they did it, I was very surprised, and I thought that's what was so interesting about this overall, and why I liked the swing of it was, I thought it was like it's just overall a very like interesting but heavy topic, especially as someone that has a kid and has a partner that I've been with for a long time, about like, if your partner died, like, you know, realistically, you're more connected to your partner because of the amount of time you've spent together than your own children, and what would the mental health of that be? So as like someone that like could imagine that situation in my current life, I was like, this is, this like hurts my brain to think about. It's heartbreaking. It's like very realistic, and I think it's kind of funny just because like, I don't know about like other couples or other married couples. Like these are conversations we'll just randomly bring up. Like, like you'll be like, if you die, like, I don't know if I'd want to keep going on. Yeah. I've lived 25 years of my life with you. Like, I don't know if I'd want that. And it's just, like it's such heavy topics. And like you said, and then it's just ruined by the beginning of this third act of conjuring bullshit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Also, not only your partner passing on, but basically you being the one who to blame because you guys were fighting and you said, well, I'm getting out of here, I'm driving, and you're the one who has the crash while you're arguing. And also you being the one that made the family move to this remote farmstead because you thought the other place was claustrophobic, and now you're all alone out here with nothing but your bad headspace and these children who are relying on you, but you can't be there to help them at this moment. So I liked a lot of this. I thought it was much better than people gave it credit for. Is it like a home run? No, but I still thought it was pretty solid overall. It certainly was no Black Adam from what I've heard.
Well, yeah, I mean, not many films can be as good as that, but I mean, to me, especially because did this come out in April? I felt like this came out in February.
March 28th.
March, okay. To me, like, this was a pleasant surprise for what normally we're getting at the beginning of the year from Blumhouse. So I thought it was interesting. And I mean, it's just interesting because, like we said, Colette Serra, I mean, this isn't his normal, well, I shouldn't say it's not his normal bag. He did do like the iconic Paris Hilton House of Wax and The Shallows, I know people love, and Orphan.
Come on.
So, but I mean, I think lately people think of him as like, nonstop Liam Neeson and Black Adam and Carry On, which is a banger. But I always find it very interesting where he's very well known as this like director for hire. And I just think it's interesting to see him bring something, to something original like this.
I will say, from what I can remember, there wasn't like a distinctive style or directorial vision to a lot of this. It was just a well executed premise until the third act, for the most part, I thought. Small scale horror, family drama, and for the beginning of the year, the first half of the year, I thought it was a decent enough watch in the theaters. Next up, we have The Ugly Stepsister. The Ugly Stepsister was written and directed by Emily Blickfeld, and the story is as follows. Elvira battles against her gorgeous stepsister in a realm where beauty reigns supreme. She resorts to extreme measures to captivate the prince amid a ruthless competition for physical perfection. This is one I've been looking forward to for a long time. It's been on my watch list, I would say, for at least half the year. And in the summertime, especially like after this hit Shudder, this was a big blind spot for us that we didn't cover this on the show. This was, it sounded like completely my bag, body horror.
We talked about it. We talked about this because I think the original plan was this and Dead Mail in a double feature.
No way. Are you serious?
I'm pretty sure that was what we talked about at one point.
Wow.
Because I think we were like trying to crunch time and stuff, and they were like, well, we could do these two and put them together because they came out at like relatively
Shudder
the same time.
Feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'm happy I did check it out eventually.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all I thought about watching this is the closest thing that we probably will ever get to Sofia Coppola making a horror movie.
There was that energy, especially with the pink kind of overly saturated dripping style.
Oh, the colors were amazing. I thought the soundtrack was awesome. It like the soundtrack was giving me like punk Sofia Coppola going on. Like, I really like this movie. Like, a lot. This is another one. I didn't know what I was going into. I didn't know what kind of horror movie it was.
Oh, you avoided that.
Yeah, I hadn't seen, all I'd heard about that people were like, this is pretty good. That's all
Okay.
I had heard was the reviews for it was this is like something to look for. I kind of stayed away from it. And to be honest, until I ended up watching it, I kind of forgot about it. Like I was kind of like, I kept being like, yeah, I need to see that. And then I didn't think about it till I was like, okay, I'm going to end up having to watch this. And I should have known it was a body horror and I would have been 100% on board. And not only is it a body horror, but it's an absolute grotesque body horror that I cringe the entire time.
It's gross, and they do a very good job at picking all of these scenes, that just make you cringe and squirm, and there's some nasty stuff in here, absolutely. This is one that I knew was a body horror, and I knew was disgusting, and it still surprised me quite a little bit when I was watching it. When I started this movie, I will say, I was allergic to some of the style, just some of the jump cuts and crash zooms and stuff, but then once it kind of went on, and I kind of got a better feel for the style and that it was purposeful and these dream sequences were meant to be very cheesy and hokey and campy. And the movie kind of transformed to be something a little bit more my tone. I really did enjoy it. But what's funny to me is early on in the movie when she goes and gets the nose job, a lot of the iconography from this movie and the pictures you see her, she has kind of like this golden kind of cage on her nose. And I have no idea what it's for when I'm looking at these pictures and whatnot. So I go in and the nose job scene, just where they put the chisel on her bump on her nose, and they do it from like a wide shot. You see like the big like hammer. It's framed so, I don't know, theatrically that you don't think it should work. But for whatever reason, it's just the sound design and the speed at which he swings that hammer on the chisel. I cringed right away. And what's funny is the movie is way worse than that.
Oh, yeah, way worse.
But in the beginning, I was like, oh, yeah, I know why people are saying this. Like, metal on bone, not nice. And, the movie gets way grosser than that.
Yeah, for me, it was the eyelash scene, the eyelash surgery.
Yeah.
I was like, the Italians that was pretty gnarly. Be proud.
And an effect that I'm not even 100% sure how they did.
I think they actually just performed it on the actress. They were like, wow. You have to do the actual surgery.
Well, listen, the actress is incredibly committed in this role. Leah Murin, her name is Murin. And she's giving one of those performances that to be an actress in a movie like this, you have to be absolutely fearless. And she is fully committed. She does not care what she looks like, how her face contorts, how her body looks. It's, like I said, it's so fearless, courageous. I don't know how you do a movie like this, really. Especially, I assume she's like an up-and-coming actress, or maybe this was her first big movie. This is an insane movie to do, and to carry on your shoulders. Like a genre bent Cinderella story body horror movie. It's quite a pick.
Yeah, so I'm taking a look here. She's only done TV, and she only has done TV in Norway. Yeah. She has 2 acting credits. This and a 7-minute short from Norway called "Suck My Dick." Nice. And that's it, which that fits the brand, punk rock as fuck. Yeah. And I came away I am so captivated and fascinated with her. This is someone I'm I want to know what they're doing next. Like you said, she just fully committed to this role. She's fantastic. Tapeworms, man. Tapeworms.
What was funny is when I was watching this movie much earlier on in the movie, right, where the idea of her swallowing this tapeworm egg comes up, I'm like, oh, I wonder if we'll ever see a movie where they kind of do the old wives' tale, where they say the only way to get rid of a tapeworm is starve it and then put a bit of honey on your tongue, and then it will come up out of your stomach and you grab it and take it out. And I remember being told that as a kid, and I thought it was, horrifying. And I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to see that in a movie. Little did I know, an hour and a half later, I'd be seeing it in a movie. The tapeworm stuff is gnarly. When I loved it conceptually as an idea. Just, once again, a lot of the point of this movie is the ugly stepsister trying to get beautiful enough to woo the prince. And it is basically a commentary on women's incredibly high body standards that they have to try and reach. Yeah. And I thought it was very pointed how she has to change her body in a bunch of different ways. throughout the movie that I thought it was very engaging, but also like sadistic. And the tapeworm where she throws them up at the ball and there's all these eggs, like half a dozen of them there, and they're all like kind of squirming a little bit. It's like, not only do you have vomit, which a lot of people just naturally are averse to, like the sound of vomit and like, you know, the look, and everyone can smell it, and you know, but then they're like, we're going to take this up a notch. We're going to put little tapeworm eggs in it. And then we're going to zoom up on them and you see it kind of like squirming and wriggling inside. Just insane work.
And it kept making me think, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, I read this book of short stories by Eric LaRocca, where one of his short horror stories was about like a weird instant messenger relationship where someone convinces this girl to eat a tapeworm for her.
Ugh.
And I remember reading that and being like, this is like absolutely, it's the first time I've read something that I'm like, this is so disgusting and absolutely terrifying. And then they knew what I wanted. I wanted it on screen. When she's pulling the tapeworm out, it's been a long time. Like, my jaw was just open, and I was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I felt like I needed to gag a little bit when I was watching that scene. I didn't gag, but like they're pulling on it for so long. And once again, this actress, like her face, how all the veins are working in it, how her eyes are bulging, how she looks like she's genuinely like gagging, the size at which the tapeworm in the end comes out and like falls out. I don't know if it's a visual effect. It seemed practical to me. And once again, it's just like, this is insane, like to have as one of your first major roles. And it was just incredible. Some smaller moments in the movie that I thought were pretty fun. Early on in the movie, there's a father that dies and they don't have the money, they say, to bury him. So they just leave his corpse to rot in the room the entire movie. There's a cut from Cinderella, essentially, her sister, going in to view her father's swollen, fly-ridden corpse, to a montage of essentially, you know, them becoming women, the femininity montage with like this upbeat, fun synth score that I was like, this is devious. This is insane. Yeah, that I thought that was so good. When the prince says to her, I don't want to fuck that, and then the music kicks in, like similarly, like again, like there's so many good moments of needle drops that it's so fun and so like tonally on point with like the vibe of the movie that I really, really enjoyed it. It's daring in a lot of its nudity as well. There's like full vulva, full penis, full everything on display in this movie, which you don't see very often. But in a movie that's a body horror, that's so much about changing your body physically to fit what you believe like a man's vision of what they would want you to be, it makes sense. And also there's like, this is the second movie on the list that has a cum shot in it. And yeah, this is just, it's a vision. We'll say that it all comes together. It's a very, disturbed vision in a lot of ways, but it's incredibly well done.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm not going to lie. Like, you know, I have a personal list I make for the main show that I'm like, I can't wait for the year embargo on this to finish up. Because I kept saying when I was watching this, I was like, I've never seen a more Mike and Jill movie in my life.
Oh, they would love this.
That we're talking about.
And it's so disgusting that it would do gangbusters on the main show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this would be a big pick. Absolutely. We didn't mention the poster in terms of, there's a scene in this where obviously it's playing on Cinderella, the ugly stepsister, that sort of thing, where the prince wants to choose his suitor based on their foot fitting inside of this slipper. And this was another scene that I was like, oh, this must be the climax of the movie that everyone talks about, where she hacks her foot up with a cleaver to basically, she cuts off all of her toes and she does a shit job where they're only cut off about 80% of the way. And then they're all bent at an unnatural angle. And, you know, she's losing consciousness and screaming as her mother comes in, and her mother finishes the job and cuts off all of her toes on both feet. Insane.
It's insane. Yeah. And that's the thing. These are just like the swings you love to see that hit every time. It's like I said, I thought, the two words from the beginning of this movie to the end, I was just like, this movie is so, this is punk rock. This movie is just so in your face and it's so not afraid of being what it is, just this gross out body horror that like has a message, has a pretty strong worded message.
Yeah, not a subtle message either.
No, like I said, this movie is literally just like someone slapping you in the face and giving you the middle finger.
Also, slut with 2 T's, meaning the end.
Yeah,
chef's kiss. Probably unintentional, but that was funny. That was good. As these crows or ravens are eating up the dead tapeworm on the front lawn. Yeah, just
and then we should mention the like a little into the credits, it then goes back to show the rotting father's body still in the building.
Yeah,
just chef's kiss for an ending.
Yeah, it's great stuff. So yeah, for me, I think this has a lot of style. This was the other movie that I said was kind of a twin of The Love Witch in some regards. A lot of the dream sequences are kind of styled in that way. And for me, it didn't work off the hop, but over the course of the movie, it grows more and more confident, almost like the way our main character becomes. And by the end, it all coalesces, and it's kind of like operatic in exclaiming that it is this good work of body horror, that it knows what it's doing. It's grotesque. Once again, there's an excellent performance at its center by Leah Miron, and like she cannot get enough credit for just fully committing her like body and mind to this movie. I thought it was incredible, and there's some demented gore stuff on display here for sure. I thought this was a very good watch.
Yeah. And
that just leaves one more pick, and in my opinion, I think we may have left the best for last. It Ends. It Ends was written and directed by Alex Ulam, and the story is as follows. Friends on a late-night food run become trapped on an infinite highway with otherworldly terrors lurking beyond. Confined in their Jeep Cherokee, they must decide whether to accept their fate or attempt escape. Now, this one has been, it's the newest release, I believe, on our list. It was just released December 10th. This was kind of the poster child for Letterboxd's new streaming service, their video store. And I was interested in kind of diving in just to see it, for that. But then also the reviews were incredible. And then Neon picked this up, even though it's already available on the Letterboxd store for theatrical distribution next year. So that is an insane,
so excited.
Yeah, mark of confidence for this movie. So I went in. I did not know what I was getting myself into. I heard it was this liminal space sort of car movie. And boy, was I impressed by pretty much everything that this movie had to offer. I thought the performances between the main cast were incredible. They read as like actual friends. The writing was excellent between them. I thought the horror surprises throughout kept me on edge. I will say that it becomes a little bit more like existential as it goes on rather than an explicit threat, but I did really enjoy it. And weirdly enough, I found it to be strangely moving by the end. You mentioned, I forget which movie it was on the list that you said was like emotionally effective for you. And this one for me
must have been Match, I think.
Yeah, must have been Match, of course.
Yeah.
But this one for me, like I found myself emotional by the end of it. I thought this was just a great watch.
It probably would have sold me quicker if Letterboxd just private messaged me and just said, "Hey, Rowan, liminal horror," and I'd be like,
"Check this out."
I will be there. As someone that spends far too many hours at 3 a.m. just YouTubing liminal spaces and doing all the back rooms, and there's lots of great Doom hacks of like liminal.
Yeah, I remember you sending those my way. Yeah.
Our House, just I think it's called like ourhouse.exe.
Yeah,
I'm just a huge fan of like liminal horror, liminal spaces. And you're right, I thought this just hit perfect. It's indie. It's shot very interestingly. It's kind of funny. So when we were watching it, I don't know what was going on with the video, but the bit rate kept changing
Oh no!
So
they're still figuring out the streaming service.
So at first, well, it's kind of funny because at first I was watching it with a friend of mine. We watched it at work, and he's like, "Is the frame rate off a bit?" And I was like, "Yeah, definitely." And I was like, "Oh, it must be like intentional or something. Like maybe it's just supposed to look like it didn't affect my viewing of it, especially where like it's definitely like a very independent movie. So I'm not really judging on that. But like you said, the cast I bought, they were friends, and there was just so much stuff, I liked with, especially obviously, when we first kind of think it's like a traditional horror movie where we just have people like running at the car, attacking people, obviously giving heavy Beau is Afraid energy coming at you, just people screaming and running. Yeah. But, I love these kind of, I'm like, okay, this is weird. Like what's going on here? But like you said, I thought it was so affecting because they do such a good job where I would worry, I think, if they brought that terror, because like you said, they bring the terror to this existential terror, but you really have to do that. Like you can't do it too quick and you can't do it too long. Yeah. And I thought they did a perfect job at giving it enough of a slow burn that you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, you're like, okay, wait a second. Like, first I'm worried about these people attacking and just screaming and running. And then it's like, wait a second. So I don't need to worry about this. And then you realize what you're worrying about is like this just never ending process of this driving. Yeah. And it just does this amazing job of that existential horror. And like I said, I mean, what a niche, like this is for the liminal space heads. And I mean, that's how you're going to make your bread and butter. Find something super niche like that. And I'm very interested to see how this plays in a theater. I mean, I'm all game for it. But to me, and I watched this on like a 70-inch television. I thought what Letterboxd has really cracked into with this is I was like, this is a really good, like, I'm laying in bed on my laptop movie. Just because I don't know what it is, but there's something about liminal spaces, like you're in bed, it's dark, all the lights are off. Like, I think you can really get sucked into this.
Yeah, when I was watching this, I just thought, basically what you're saying, the shift from the direct threat of people chasing the car to the more existential horror by the end of it, I just thought it was so masterfully done. Like, my second note of the movie is like, what is up with these people banging on the car? And I was like, is this like zombies? I was like, is this just like souls from the afterlife? Like, what is this? And I mean, it kind of is the latter. But I was like, if the whole movie's going to be like this is not going to be my vibe whatsoever. And as the great title drop, I was like, okay, yeah, this road never ends. Let's keep going. And then in order for the existential horror to work, you really have to exhaust every single permutation in this scenario. And I love them figuring out the 90 seconds. I love them discussing, like, are we just trapped in place? Does the woods change around us? Do the people spawn? What is happening here? I liked all these different ideas of like driving really fast, swapping out the person driving. But then ultimately, how you make it existential horror is you have to lose people along the way. And what I love most about this movie is that it's not a threat. Like, it's not the people in the woods getting them. It's just these people can't take it anymore. That they just give up and that's it. And I just thought it was like such a poignant like metaphor for whatever you want to put up. Life, motivation, ambition, depression, whatever it is. You can throw whatever you want at this movie, and essentially you can imprint whatever on this. And when the title card of Tyler, 56,182 miles came up, it was like a gut punch for me because I knew what we were about to see. And once again, is this usually a guy I would vibe with? Military bro? Absolutely not. Was it a fully realized character with a distinct accent and kind of like this country boy that I was like, oh, I kind of understand how he fits into this friend group, but also how he's kind of falling away from it. I thought it was so well done. And then the fact that, he just kind of is like, I can't take this anymore. I'm not going back to the metal box. I'm just going to embrace what comes, and them all having to carry on, and James shedding the final tear as he's driving, but also being so emotionally closed off to it all. I just thought it was really well done, where I was like, damn, this hits way harder than I would expect it to hit for just, 4 people sitting in a car, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really hoping the inspiration is from the It Slays episode classic of Dead End, my favorite Christmas movie, which also liminal space horror of just a never-ending road.
Oh, I didn't know that. I've never seen it.
Oh my God, yeah. I feel like that was early, like year 2 or 3 of...
Okay.
That was
I used
days.
to just listen to you guys all the time. I didn't actually watch the movies along with
Lynn
you.
Shay and Ray Wise. It's a Canadian film about a family in a car on a never-ending road. Is it hell? Is it very similar but not, because like things happen in that movie. Like it's not necessarily an existential dread in this never-ending thing. But yeah, just like you said, it's so fantastic. I am curious. So how far do you think you would make it in? Are you going all the way?
See, like as a person looking in, I would like to say that I would have the fortitude to continue going, and I am somebody who I just love driving. I am like, if I need to have a difficult conversation, like I probably will be better having it if I'm driving and I'm somewhat distracted, and I don't have to look the person in the eye and actually have that conversation face to face. But I don't know if I would be able to do this forever, and like that's the thing where it's like, I don't know when you tap out. But I think James making it to, we jumped over the middle people, but making it to the end and just realizing like the road is over and the only way to go is back again, and you're going to do that forever. I don't know. That's a bitter pill to swallow at that point. What about yourself? Where are you tapping out?
I'm probably tapping out. Like, well, I don't know, because I'm kind of the same as you. I just really enjoy driving. I'm like notorious. Like if I go on a long trip, like I'll drive like 13 hours. I don't mind
driving. I'm the same way. Yeah,
I love it. I think it's a pretty good like metaphor. We'll see how you feel on year 27 of the It Slays podcast when.
Listen, I'm already hitting my like 500,000 or 600,000 miles on the It Slays podcast, so we'll see how much I have left in me. But yeah, like this movie, I don't know why it was so emotionally effective. Maybe it's just a commentary on my mental space, which isn't the greatest. I was watching this and I was like, this is so sad, and I don't know why. The line of when they just say like, maybe less people make it this far, which is why like there's no longer people chasing them, that they've been doing this for so long that they've outran like everyone kind of left behind. I thought that was really poignant. And then to be basically presented with that idea to, I never should have smoked that shit, now I'm on the endless road, is like such total whiplash, but also like clever like meme, and people being like so, unserious is a terrible word for it, but that's what I mean. Like basically just making light in any situation and kind of seeing them break down as well. I think just like the mental unraveling of everybody in this friend group was doled out at such a good pace, despite them trying all these different ways to keep themselves mentally engaged, like the different moments of like where they would go scream, or that they would play games with each other, or they'd have the moment where they can kind of air out their grievances, or basically having this schedule that they're kind of modifying as they're on the road. They were doing so much work to keep themselves sane, that was kind of exhausting in and of itself. So that moment where Day and Fisher give up, or they don't really give up, but they're kind of like, they're over it, they pull out the keys and they're just like, well, we're just gonna hang here. I love that moment because it's the first moment in the movie where you see James like completely break, where he hasn't been the one screaming and expressing his emotion. He's very closed off and reserved, other than that single tear. But to see him completely break in that moment and like scream at the car trying to get it to fire back up again, and him leaving his friends behind, and he doesn't care how long he has to drive, he's just going to keep doing it. I just thought, like, once again, like that was just, I don't know, great work.
It was touching. That's me. That's going to be me in year 30 of the It Slays podcast, when it's just me talking into a microphone and I'm like, I don't care, everyone left. It's just me talking about, I don't know, we'll be on like Leprechaun 20 by then or something.
Yeah, you'll have to pick up some more passengers along the way.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's not just you, just all by yourself. but yeah, I don't know what it was. This really resonated strongly with me. I don't know if it's everyone's sort of movie. I really enjoyed it though. And what was funny is I was watching this and I was like, Alex Ulam. I was like, that name is so familiar to me. And I wound up Googling it afterwards. And he's a guy that I've been following on YouTube for years.
Oh, really?
but he just hasn't made any shorts. He used to make these like little silly short films that was like, I don't know, it'd just be called like Guy Walking Funny, and it'd be like a 30-second clip of some guys walking normal, but then one guy's walking really funny, and it's like the friend group almost like poking fun at him, just like really, really stupid little shorts. And I used to find them really funny, so I was following him. I probably discovered him on Reddit or something. So to see him level up from these 30-second little shorts that he probably made a dozen of to this like 90-minute film that is like has a lot of levels to it or layers to it, like basically things to unravel, I just thought was really impressive. And he's actually in the movie. He's the last person that gets picked up. He's the one who's just basically, they have the discussion about the falcons and gorillas and whatnot. And I was just like, man, chef's kiss. I really enjoyed it. And I thought the character who played James, all the actors are good in this movie. The core four are all great, but whoever plays James, he is excellent.
Phineas Yun.
Yeah, he is excellent. I don't know if he's been in a whole lot else, but
like four other movies.
When I was watching him, I was like, this guy's got it. Like, he was alone in a car and just like, he was keeping me captivated for, you know, the 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is for the end of the movie when he's all alone. I just thought very, very good stuff here. Very assured, very confident filmmaking. Is it like the most beautiful movie you've ever seen? No, probably not. But I just think a lot of the character work, the dialogue, and how they slowly shift into existential horror and kind of address all the questions that you're thinking as you're watching the movie, I thought it was very, very effective. Yeah,
to me, like, if this is Gen Z directing, like, I'm okay with it. I think about the other Gen Z, the fake Gen Z movies, you know, like the bodies, where we just have like, where we have like 30 and 40-year-olds directing what they think Gen Z is going to sound like. If it's more like this, I'm definitely on board.
Me as well. Let's get off this endless road and end the episode. I mean, I doubt it'll be almost 3 hours when you're done editing, but here we are. So if you're not following us already, you can do so at It's Lays Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Slasher, Letterboxd, Threads, Bluesky, TikTok. If there's a social media, we're probably there at It's Lays Podcast. And if you want to help support the show financially, like our horror hounds, Holly, Nicholas, Mark, Steven, Dan, Brian, Trevor, and James, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams, hosted by Jill, and get episodes of the main show 48 hours early. Be sure to head on over to patreon.com/It's Lays Podcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. Rowan, we discussed music a few times over the course of the last few hours. Maybe something needs to make the playlist.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely going to be some stuff that makes the playlist. Maybe fucking find some Rabbit Trap stuff. Your favorite Dead Male. I don't know, maybe we get some punk rock going from the Ugly Stepsister.
Nice. Yeah, that would be good. But
we'll find some good stuff for the playlist. So if you want to see if anything made it, you can go to Spotify to the It's Lays Podcast Horrific playlist. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media that Colton just mentioned. Go into the bio. There's a link. Click it. Take you directly there, and we upload scores and licensed music from iconic horror movies we review, or just horror movies we love. So follow us, we update it regularly, and get your spooky music on, because why the hell not?
I don't know if I explicitly said, but It Ends was the movie that bumped Hamnet out of my top 10, by the way. I gotta put that number 10.
Yeah,
just as a testament to indie film making, just to let people know. But yeah, I just had to throw that in there. But next time on the show, it looks like we'll be monkeying around with the latest January horror release, Primate.
January, known for all the best horror movies that were released.
Is this the Gordy's Home spinoff we've all been waiting for? Well, we'll see later this week when we check it out. And with that, I think that about wraps things up for this episode. So until next time, I'm Colton.
I'm Rowan.
And as long as you keep listening, we'll keep slaying.